Igen, her, så piper vi. Det er ikke lige med det samme.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Doing pretty good. I was just playing Pandemic with my mom. Pandemic Legacy. Have you tried it?
No.
It's a great game.
Seems appropriate.
It feels very appropriate. Fuck. I swear. Moving my laptop and stuff from my workstation to my room is always, there's a keyboard and there's a mouse and there's a charger and there's a headset and then there's what's the thing called that you put the mouse on?
Like a mouse pad?
Yeah, a mouse pad. And the keyboard and the mouse is still on. I guess I could turn the mouse off, but the keyboard doesn't have an off button.
Mm.
Also in Pandemic, there's a lot of mutants in London, and we isolated it.
Oh, okay.
So
in the game, okay.
In the game. Yes, in the game. It's very important.
Okay.
Very important. What about you? How are you?
Nervous about singing.
I see.
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
Yeah. While Frankie reads A Christmas Carol, I think I'm going to go and have a bath. And I'll listen to it in the bath.
Okay, that's probably a good choice.
Sounds quite relaxing.
I hear you about being nervous about singing. I had this piece that I wanted to do, but I practiced earlier and I couldn't make it work with both playing piano for it and singing at the same time. I kept making mistakes, so I'm gonna choose a slightly more boring. Hello. Slightly more boring
piece
with less history. Also, I'm gonna be gone for a sec.
Hello, Kim. Hello, Andreas. How are you folks doing?
Hello.
Trying to set up on a tablet. I'm not used to this. My laptop crapped out, so.
Body full of foods.
Oh, very good. Where in the world are you today?
Germany's.
Erlangen in Franconia. That's
Okay.
That's like the Scotland of Bavaria.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
No.
Come on, Bavaria is so awful that Franconia is kind of the Scotland of Bavaria. Just like Britain is so awful, but Scotland is cool.
They've just got to move to someone else.
Hi, Melissa. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm very well. How are you doing? So
doing
nice
okay? Yeah, doing okay. But nervous about playing music later. But good, yeah.
Good. Hi, Frankie.
Oh fuck! With the dungarees. Oh my god.
We just had Carol singing on our street with like 25 neighbours, and it was the most wholesome thing. And my dad was playing the piano.
Oh.
That is exceptionally wholesome.
And my voice is completely gone because I haven't sung in like 10 months.
No, I'm losing everyone.
Merry Solstice.
Merry Solstice, everybody.
Merry Solstice, everybody. Gets easier from here.
Yeah, it does. This is going to be good. I've got a good feeling about it.
Yeah. Hey, Melissa.
Hiya, you all right?
Hey, Andrea.
Yeah, I'm
I was
good.
in for ages. Hey, all right.
Good. Kim and Andreas. Oh my God, Andreas is here. Who else have we got? We've got Tal. Hi, Tal.
Hi.
Hey, Jen. Hey, Anjada. Cara.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Cara, welcome back, sweetie.
Thank you.
Oh, it's so nice to see you. Look at your beautiful smiling face. Oh, we've got Mike. Hiya, Mike. Hello, Mike.
I like your Christmas jumper, Melissa. That's cool.
Yeah, I've gone full out Christmassy.
Fantastic.
Looking good as hell.
Your tree's looking awesome there, Frankie.
He says Rory.
Santa's got something in his sack there, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, James. Oh, no. We're not going to have that conversation yet. We need to wait until after the Christmas Carol.
Get some mulled wine down you first. Let's have some prep with some wholesomeness before we get into it. Hi, Athena. Hey, honey. Hi, Martin. Hey, you look so cool.
Oh my God, so many cool people.
No, look at this. Oh my God, Gordon's here. Hi, Gordon.
Gordon?
Lisa's here.
I come here.
We've got Carmen and Ewan lurking secretly. Mike and Pontoof, Zach, Jonathan. Bloody hell, full house.
Andrea, it looks like you're in a log cabin there. Have you got a wooden roof there?
It's not a cabin, no. But I'm home in my in the room I grew up in. Actually.
Oh,
that's so exciting.
That's sweet. Is it filled with memories, all flooding back?
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Ah, lush.
Hey, good.
Oh wow, we've got both Gordon and Gordon's beard.
Too big for one Zoom.
Looking amazing, mate.
Yeah, it's looking super good.
Glorious.
I may be disguised as Santa later. I mean,
disguised. Reveal your true Santa self, I think you mean. Hi, Nick. Hi, Nick and Katie.
I don't really think it's a secret that Gordon has a Santa self as well. He just gives delightful gifts of his words to us all the time.
I have a thing for reindeer as well. It's weird. It's weird.
So weird. Hi, Ian. Nice jumper. Jenny's here. Hey, Jenny. Oh, Ivan. Oh.
Ivan, that's too sexy.
Oh my. Save it for saucy time.
Can I do a quick PSA? I've told some of you already, but I am trying out the name Bracken. So if you guys can try and call me Bracken, that would be amazing. If you forget, that's fine too. But I'm just trying it out, seeing how it feels.
It's such a cool choice of name.
Cool, Bracken.
Thank you.
Fuck yeah, Bracken.
Woo!
Good, Bracken.
Got a Malcolm, a secret Malcolm. Oh, hello. Hi, Malcolm.
Hi, Malcolm.
Sorry, I'm currently standing on my bath, just finishing painting. So that's why I'm on the phone. But I shall deposit you all lovingly over here.
Are you trying to set it up for a you've been framed moment?
You look at Malcolm.
No, because there's no one. There you go. Is that comfortable?
That's cool. Yeah.
I've missed watching Malcolm decorate for so long.
Mum, come say hi. Come say hi.
Do we get to meet Frankie's mum again?
Hi, Tina.
Come.
Hey, Frankie's mum.
Frankie's
Happy Christmas. Happy solstice.
Cheers.
Solstice.
Mum is going to be listening in for this one.
Excellent.
So, some of it. She may get bored and go off and do Pilates.
She doesn't sit still for long, so I can imagine that.
Yeah, she doesn't sit. Malcolm's onto you. He says you don't sit still for long.
No, I don't.
When does your mum's Pilates class start?
What's that, my darling?
When does your mum's Pilatesism start that she's doing?
What time? 8 p.m. 8 p.m.
And she's hosting it. Is that right?
No, participating, but should be hosting. She's the Pilates queen after all.
I think that we should all just give like a quick thank you to Frankie's mum for making Frankie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and raising Frankie, like, oh my goodness, like, great job with that human.
Thank you.
She says you're welcome. Thank you very much.
She's mine, really.
Mother. Oh no. Oh, I've made a horrible mistake.
Oh.
What's the mistake that we're gonna keep loving you and your mom? Oh no! So much love.
Oh no.
Too much love. Can't take it. Can't take it.
Oh no.
At one point, it would be lovely to have Frankie's mum doing a story time where she just tells us embarrassing stories about Frankie's childhood.
Yes.
She's not interested in that. She's there are no embarrassing stories from my childhood.
But what if she did it while doing Pilates? Would that help?
That would probably help a lot. She's very flexible. Oh God. Okay. She says she's waiting for the poems. We will begin the poems in just a moment. We'll have 2 more minutes and then we will officially start. Before we do officially start, do we have a Heather? Heather! Hi, Heather!
Hey.
God, long time no see.
Hi.
Oh, it's so nice to have you along.
Yes, it's nice to be here.
Oh, my internet is not. We've got Duncan. Hi, Duncan. A secret Duncan.
Carmen
There's
and
Carmen and Ewan. What? Hey.
Hello.
Yes, just quickly before we get started. So the course of this evening. First of all, my internet here is dicky as hell. So hopefully this will be okay. If at any point it goes horribly wrong, shout up in the chat, or somebody unmute yourself and say, Frankie, we can't hear you. Hopefully it will be okay. Second thing is, so the running order for tonight is we have a couple of poems first. Gordon and Rory are going to read a poem.
That was so lovely. That was such a good idea. Oh gosh.
Sorry, I've just muted you, Katie. I'm sorry. So then we will have a Christmas carol, which will take, I don't know how long it'll take, somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours. There will be an intermission. There will be like a 5-minute intermission halfway through for people to have wheeze and make cups of tea and things like that. And then after a Christmas carol and before the live music, we are going to have a very quick candlelit ceremony to mark the solstice and the saying goodbye to this terrible year. This is completely optional. If you would like to join in, you will need 2 candles. Tea lights are good. They don't have to be tea lights. 2 candles preferably that you can like hold in or on your hands. And when we get started, or just before we go into that, if anybody wants, if you want to like turn off or dim your lights, that is all good as well. You don't have to, but it will make it more atmospheric. Okay, I think that's everything. And it's now 10 minutes past story time, which is officially story time. I don't think we can get started if Katie doesn't remind me. I think that's where we're at now. So is Katie there to give me a reminder? I don't know. Oh, you're muted, my darling.
I think you muted her and she can't.
Oh no. Hold on. No. I'm attempting to unmute you. Oh no.
We have to have sorry Katie do it.
Okay. Maybe I'll just start and we'll assume that Katie has reminded me. Okay, so I'm going to mute you all and then hopefully unmute Gordon, or at least I'm attempting to do so. Okay, Gordon, would you like to start us off with a poem?
I would. I have one specially prepared. Very exciting. Some of you may have heard this before. This is The Christmas Creature, a festive Christmas poem by Erin Kubel. Gather, my children, this winter night. The air is crisp and the stars are bright. Turn off the tunes and take a pause. Cease your thoughts of Santa Claus and hark the season's vital feature, appeasing the great Christmas creature. His trials are strange and tricky too, but heed my words and you'll make it through. The first test will be the Christmas boy. He'll knock and ask for your favorite toy. Hand it over and hold back your tears. You'll get it back, so have no fear. The second test is the asking bird. You must tell the truth with every word. The Christmas creature can hear your lies and watch you through your own dog's eyes. So grab your offerings real quick, a lock of hair, a real good stick. If you've been naughty, a pint of blood, a haunted chalice, a mound of mud. He'll judge your gifts, so beware. Use a bow and wrap with care. Climb the hill, and as you get nearer, take out your special Christmas mirror. You mustn't look directly at his face, or else your memories will be replaced. Walk backwards to him and throw your gift into the yawning blue, not red, rift. Toss it true and toss it quick before the fog around you gets too thick. Now the Christmas creature will ruminate on your special Christmas fate. And if you've done everything just right, a bong, bing, bong will ring through the night. The Christmas creature's great eyes will glow. Your stolen toy will appear in the snow. Mostly the same, but a little wet, and now you're in the creature's debt. It's tradition, so don't be scared. And Merry Christmas, you've been spared.
No.
I love that so much.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Appease the creature.
Yay.
You better watch out. You better watch out. You better watch out. You better watch
Oh no, I muted you all. Oh, what a shame. Thank you, Gordon. That was horrifying. I love you very much. So now, before we start off the main reading, we also have Rory, who has maybe a slightly less horrifying poem to read us.
Hey, yeah, I literally wrote this poem today because Kitty and I went up the hill in the pre-dawn and everything, and apparently I'm in a big Philip Larkin mood, so brace yourselves.
Wait. I think this is the one that I would like to go before the ceremony. Are you still good to read?
Oh, yeah, totally. So sorry. Of course, absolutely. This is another poem of my own devising.
We're saving the feel.
This is another poem that is another original work. TM, copyright Rory McKinnon Industries. And it goes a little something like this. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a lustre of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eyes did appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick I knew in a moment he must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. To the top of the porch! To the top of the wall! Now dash away! Dash away! Dash away all! As leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they met with an obstacle, mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke, it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed, like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night!"
Very much enjoy Rory as Brian Blessed as Santa Claus.
Yep. I knew that would be the best thing that's ever happened, and I was not wrong. Thank you very much, my love. Now that you're all thoroughly festived up, I think it is officially story time. So I'm going to mute you all. And now, are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Marley was dead, to begin with. There is no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was good for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Mind, I don't mean to see that I know of my own knowledge what there is particularly dead about a doornail. I might have been inclined myself to regard a coffin nail as the deadest piece of ironmongery in the trade, but the wisdom of our ancestors is in the simile, and my unhallowed hands shall not disturb it. You will therefore permit me to repeat emphatically that Marley was as dead as a doornail. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name. There it stood, years afterwards, above the warehouse door. Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people new to the business called Scrooge Scrooge, and sometimes Marley, but he answered to both names. It was all the same to him. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire. Secret and self-contained, and solitary as an oyster. He carried his own low temperature always about with him. He iced his office in the dog days, and didn't thaw it 1 degree at Christmas. Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather. foggy withal, and he could hear the people in the court outside go wheezing up and down, beating their hands upon their breasts and stamping their feet upon the pavement stones to warm them. The city clocks had only just gone 3, but it was quite dark already. It had not been light all day, and candles were flaring in the windows of the neighbouring offices like ruddy smears upon the palpable brown air. The fog came pouring in at every chink and keyhole, and was so dense without that, although the court was of the narrowest, the houses opposite were mere phantoms. The door of Scrooge's counting house was open that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, who, in a dismal little cell beyond, was copying letters. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller that it looked like one coal. But he couldn't replenish it, for Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room. Wherefore the clerk put on his white comforter and tried to warm himself at the candle, in which effort, not being a man of a strong imagination, he failed. "A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you!" cried a cheerful voice. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew. "Bah!" said Scrooge. "Humbug!" He had so heated himself with rapid walking in the fog and frost, this nephew of Scrooge's, that he was all in a glow. His face was ruddy and handsome, his eyes sparkled, and his breath smoked. "Christmas a humbug, Uncle?" said Scrooge's nephew. "You don't mean that, I am sure." "I do," said Scrooge. "Merry Christmas! What right have you to be merry? What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough." "Come then," returned the nephew gaily, "what right have you to be dismal? What reason have you to be morose? You're rich enough." Scrooge, having no better answer ready on the spur of the moment, said "Bah!" again, and followed it up with "Humbug!" "Don't be cross, Uncle," said the nephew. "What else can I be," returned the uncle, "when I live in such a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas! Out upon Merry Christmas! What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older, but not an hour richer? If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart." "Uncle," pleaded the nephew. "Nephew," returned the uncle sternly, "keep Christmas in your own way and let me keep it in mine." "Keep it?" repeated Scrooge's nephew. "But you don't keep it." "Let me leave it alone, then," said Scrooge. "Much good may it do you. Much good has it ever done you." "There are many things from which I might have derived good by which I have not profited, I dare say," returned the nephew. "Christmas among the rest. But I am sure I have always thought of Christmas time as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time, the only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely, and to think of people below them as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave, and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys. And therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it had done me good, and will do me good, and I say, God bless it." The clerk involuntarily applauded. Becoming immediately sensible of the impropriety, he poked the fire, and extinguished the last frail spark for ever. "Let me hear another sound from you," said Scrooge, "and you'll keep your Christmas by losing your situation. You're quite a powerful speaker, sir," he added, turning to his nephew. "I wonder you don't go into Parliament." "Don't be angry, Uncle. Dine with us tomorrow." "Why did you get married?" said Scrooge. "Because I fell in love." "Because you fell in love," growled Scrooge, as if that were the only thing in the world more ridiculous than a Merry Christmas. "Good afternoon." "Nay, Uncle, but you never came to see me before that happened. Why give it as a reason for not coming now?" I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why cannot we be friends? Good afternoon, said Scrooge. I am sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute. We never had any quarrel to which I have been a party, but I'll keep my Christmas humour to the last. So a Merry Christmas, Uncle. Good afternoon, said Scrooge. His nephew left the room and stopped at the outer door to bestow the greetings of the season on the clerk, who, cold as he was warmer than Scrooge, for he returned them cordially. There's another fellow, muttered Scrooge, who overheard him. My clerk, with 15 shillings a week and a wife and family, talking about a Merry Christmas. I'll retire to Bedlam. This lunatic, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let 2 other people in. They now stood with their hats off in Scrooge's office and bowed to him. Scrooge and Marley's, I believe, said one of the gentlemen. Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley? Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years, Scrooge replied. He died 7 years ago, this very night. We have no doubt his liberality is well represented by his surviving partner, said the gentleman, presenting his credentials. It certainly was, for they had been 2 kindred spirits. At the ominous word liberality, Scrooge frowned and shook his head and handed the credentials back. At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, said the gentleman, taking up a pen, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute, who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands are in want of common necessaries. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts, sir. Are there no prisons? Asked Scrooge. Plenty of prisons, said the gentleman, laying down the pen again. And the union workhouses, are they still in operation? They are. I wish I could say they were not. Oh, I was afraid, from what you said at first, that something had occurred to stop them in their useful course, said Scrooge. I'm very glad to hear it. Under the impression that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer of mind or body to the multitude, returned the gentleman, a few of us are endeavouring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. What shall I put you down for? Nothing. You wish to be anonymous? I wish to be left alone, said Scrooge. Since you ask me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the establishments I have mentioned. Those who are badly off must go there. Many can't go there, and many would rather die. If they would rather die, said Scrooge, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. It's enough for a man to understand his own business and not to interfere with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Seeing clearly that it would be useless to pursue their point, the gentleman withdrew. Scrooge resumed his labours with an improved opinion of himself. Meanwhile, the fog and darkness thickened. The ancient tower of a church, whose gruff old bell was always peeping slyly down at Scrooge out of a Gothic window in the wall, became invisible, and struck the hours and quarters in the clouds, with tremulous vibrations afterwards, as if its teeth were chattering in its frozen head up there. The cold became intense. At length the hour of shutting up the counting-house arrived. With an ill will, Scrooge dismounted from his stool. You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose, said Scrooge to the expectant clerk. If it's quite convenient, sir. It's not convenient, said Scrooge, and it's not fair. If I was to stop £0.50 for it, you'd think yourself ill-used, I'll be bound. And yet you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work. The clerk observed that it was only once a year. A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December, said Scrooge, buttoning his greatcoat to the chin. But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier next morning. The clerk promised that he would, and Scrooge walked out with a growl. The office was closed in a twinkling, and the clerk, with the long ends of his white comforter dangling below his waist, went down a slide at the end of a lane 20 times in honour of its being Christmas Eve, and then ran home to Camden Town as hard as he could pelt. Scrooge lived in chambers which had once belonged to his deceased partner. They were a gloomy suite of rooms in a lowering pile of building up a yard, where it had so little business to be that one could scarcely help fancying it must have run there when it was a young house, playing at hide-and-seek with other houses, and forgotten the way out again. It was old enough now, and dreary enough, for nobody lived in it but Scrooge. The yard was so dark that even Scrooge, who knew its every stone, was fain to grope with his hands. Now, it is a fact that there was nothing at all very particular about the knocker on the door, except that it was very large. It is also a fact that Scrooge had not bestowed one thought on Marley since his last mention of his 7 years dead partner that afternoon. And then let any man explain to me, if he can, how it happened that Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker not a knocker, but Marley's face. Marley's face. It was not in impenetrable shadow as the other objects in the yard were, but it had a dismal light about it, like a bad lobster in a dark cellar. The hair was curiously stirred as if by breath or hot air, and though the eyes were wide open, they were perfectly motionless. As Scrooge looked fixedly at this phenomenon, it was a knocker again. To say that he was not startled would be untrue, but he put his hand upon the key he had relinquished, turned it, walked in, and lighted his candle. He did pause with a moment's irresolution before he shut the door, and he did look cautiously behind it first, as if he half expected to be terrified with the sight of Marley's pigtail sticking out into the hall. But there was nothing on the back of the door except the screws and nuts that held the knocker on, so he closed it with a bang. He fastened the door and walked across the hall and up the stairs, trimming his candle as he went. You may suppose that it was pretty dark. Up Scrooge went, not caring a button for that. Darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it. He took off his cravat, put on his dressing gown and slippers and his nightcap, and sat down before the fire to take his gruel. As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened to rest upon a bell, a disused bell that hung in the room and communicated for some purpose now forgotten with a chamber in the highest story of the building. It was with great astonishment and with a strange, inexplicable dread that as he looked he saw this bell begin to swing. It swung so softly in the outset that it scarcely made a sound, but soon it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house. This might have lasted half a minute, or a minute, but it seemed an hour. The bells ceased as they had begun, together. They were succeeded by a clanking noise deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain. Scrooge then remembered to have heard that ghosts in haunted houses were described as dragging chains. The cellar door flew open, and then he heard the noise much louder on the floors below, and then coming up the stairs, then coming straight towards his door. "It's humbug still," said Scrooge. "I won't believe it." His colour changed when, without a pause, it came on through the heavy door and passed into the room before his eyes. The same face. The very same. Marley in his pigtail, usual waistcoat, tights and boots. The chain he drew was clasped about his middle. It was long and wound about him like a tail, and it was made, for Scrooge observed it closely, of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought in steel. His body was transparent, so that Scrooge, observing him and looking through his waistcoat, could see the 2 buttons on his coat behind. Though he looked the phantom through and through and saw it standing before him, though he felt the chilling influence of its death-cold eyes, he was still incredulous and fought against his senses. "How now?" said Scrooge, caustic and cold as ever. "Who are you?"
"Ask me who I was."
"Who were you then?" said Scrooge, raising his voice.
"In life I was your partner, Jacob Marley."
Can you sit down?" asked Scrooge, looking doubtfully at him.
"I can."
"Do it then." Scrooge asked the question because he didn't know whether a ghost so transparent might find himself in a condition to take a chair, and felt that in the event of its being impossible, it might involve the necessity of an embarrassing explanation. But the ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace as if he were quite used to it.
"You don't believe in me?" observed the ghost.
"I don't," said Scrooge.
"Why do you doubt your senses?"
"Because," said Scrooge, "a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are." Scrooge was not much in the habit of cracking jokes, nor did he feel in his heart by any means waggish then. The truth is that he tried to be smart as a way of keeping down his terror, for the spectre's voice disturbed the very marrow in his bones. "Humbug, I tell you! Humbug!" At this the spirit raised a frightful cry, and shook its chain with such a dismal and appalling noise that Scrooge held on tight to his chair to save himself from falling in a swoon. Scrooge fell upon his knees and clasped his hands before his face. "Mercy!" he said. "Dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me?"
"Man of the worldly mind," replied the ghost, "do you believe in me or not?"
"I do," said Scrooge. "I must. But why do spirits walk the earth, and why do they come to me?"
"It is required of every man," the ghost returned, "that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men, and travel far and wide. And if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is doomed to wander through the world. Oh, woe is me! And witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth and turned to happiness."
Again the spectre raised a cry, and shook its chain and wrung its shadowy hands. "You are fettered," said Scrooge, trembling. "Tell me why."
"I wear the chain I forged in life," replied the ghost. "I made it link by link and yard by yard. I girded it on of my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it. Is its pattern strange to you?"
Scrooge trembled more and more.
"Or would you know," pursued the ghost, "the weight and length of the strong coil you bear yourself? It was full as heavy and as long as this 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have laboured on it since. It is a ponderous chain."
Scrooge glanced about him on the floor in the expectation of finding himself surrounded by some 50 or 60 fathoms of iron cable, but he could see nothing.
"Jacob," he said imploringly, "oh, Jacob Marley, tell me more. Speak comfort to me, Jacob." "I have none to give," the ghost replied. "I cannot rest. I cannot stay. I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond our counting house. Mark me. In life, my spirit never roved beyond the narrow limits of our money-changing hole, and weary journeys lie before me. Oh, captive, bound and double-ironed, cried the phantom, not to know that in any Christian spirit working kindly in its little sphere, whatever it may be, will find its mortal life too short for its vast means of usefulness. Not to know that such space of regret can make amends for one's life opportunity misused. Yet such it was, such was I. But you were always a good man of business, Jacob, faltered Scrooge, who now began to apply this to himself. Business, cried the ghost, wringing its hands again. Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. It held up its chain at arm's length, as if that were the cause of all its unavailing grief, and flung it heavily upon the ground again. At this time of the rolling year, the spectre said, I suffer most. Hear me. My time is nearly gone. I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate. You are always a good friend to me, said Scrooge. Thank ye. You will be haunted, resumed the ghost, by 3 spirits. Scrooge's countenance fell. Is that the chance and the hope that you mentioned, Jacob? He demanded in a faltering voice. It is. I think I'd rather not, said Scrooge. Without their visits, said the ghost, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow, when the bell tolls 1. Couldn't I take 'em all at once and have it over, Jacob? Hinted Scrooge. Expect the second on the next night at the same hour, the third upon the next night, when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more, and for your own sake, remember what has passed between us. When it had said these words, the apparition walked backward from him, and at every step it took, the window raised itself a little, so that when the spectre reached it, it was wide open. It beckoned Scrooge to approach, which he did. When they were within 2 paces of each other, Marley's ghost held up its hand, warning him to come no nearer. Scrooge stopped. Not so much in obedience as in surprise and fear, for on the raising of the hand he became sensible of confused noises in the air, incoherent sounds of lamentation and regret, wailings inexpressibly sorrowful and self-accusatory. The spectre, after listening for a moment, joined in the mournful dirge and floated out upon the bleak, dark night. Scrooge followed to the window, desperate in his curiosity. He looked out. The air was filled with phantoms, wandering hither and thither in restless haste, and moaning as they went. Every one of them wore chains like Marley's ghost. Some few, they might be guilty governments, were linked together. None were free. The misery with them all was, clearly, that they sought to interfere for good in human matters, and had lost the power forever. Whether these creatures faded into mist, or mist enshrouded them, he could not tell. But they and their spirit voices faded together, and the night became as it had been when he walked home. Scrooge closed the window and examined the door by which the ghost had entered. It was double locked, as he had locked it with his own hands, and the bolts were undisturbed. He tried to say humbug, but stopped at the first syllable, and being much in need of repose, went straight to bed without undressing, and fell asleep upon the instant.
When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that, looking out of bed, he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber. He was endeavouring to pierce the darkness when the chimes of a neighbouring church struck the 4 quarters. So he listened for the hour. To his great astonishment, the heavy bell went on from 6 to 7, and from 7 to 8, and regularly up to 12, then stopped. 12? It was past 2 when he went to bed. Why, it isn't possible, said Scrooge, that I can have slept through a whole day and far into another night. Scrooge thought and thought it over and over and over, and could make nothing of it. The more he thought, the more perplexed he was, and the more he endeavoured not to think, the more he thought. Scrooge lay in this state until the chime had gone 3 quarters more, when he remembered on a sudden that the ghost had warned him of a visitation when the bell tolled 1. He resolved to lie awake until the hour was past, and then, considering that he could no more go to sleep than go to heaven, this was perhaps the wisest resolution in his power. The quarter was so long that he was more than once convinced he must have sunk into a doze unconsciously and missed the clock. At length the hour bell sounded with a deep, dull, hollow melancholy. 1. Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn aside by a hand. Scrooge, starting up, found himself face to face with the unearthly visitor who drew them, as close to it as I am to you now, and I am standing in spirit at your elbow. It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man, viewed through some supernatural medium, which gave him the appearance of having receded from the view and being diminished to a child's proportions. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white as if with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle in it, and the tenderest bloom was on the skin. It wore a tunic of the purest white, and held a branch of fresh green holly in its hand. But the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light, by which all this was visible, and a great extinguisher for a cap which it now held under its arm. Even this, though, when Scrooge looked at it with increasing steadiness, was not its strangest quality, for the figure itself fluctuated in its distinctness, being now a thing with 1 arm, now with 1 leg, now with 20 legs, now a pair of legs without a head, now a head without a body, of which dissolving parts no outline would be visible in the dense gloom wherein they melted away. And in the very wonder of this, it would be itself again, distinct and clear as ever. "Are you the spirit whose coming was foretold to me?" asked Scrooge. "I am." The voice was soft and gentle, singularly low, as if instead of being so close behind him, it were at a distance. "Who and what are you?" Scrooge demanded. "I am the ghost of Christmas past." "Long past?" inquired Scrooge. "No, your past." Scrooge then made bold to inquire what business brought him there. "Your welfare," said the ghost. Scrooge expressed himself much obliged, but could not help thinking that a night of unbroken rest would have been much more conducive to that end. The spirit must have heard him thinking, for it said immediately, "Your reclamation, then. Take heed." It put out its strong hand as it spoke and clasped him gently by the arm. "Rise and walk with me." It would have been in vain for Scrooge to plead that the weather and the hour were not adapted to pedestrian purposes. That bed was warm and the thermometer a long way below freezing. That he was clad but lightly in his slippers, dressing gown, and nightcap. The grasp, though gentle, was not to be resisted. He rose, but finding that the spirit made towards the window, clasped his robe in supplication.
I am a mortal, Scrooge remonstrated, and liable to fall. Bear but a touch of my hand, there, said the spirit, laying it upon his heart, and you shall be upheld in more than this. As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood upon an open country road with fields on either hand. The city had entirely vanished. Not a vestige of it was to be seen. The darkness and the mist had vanished with it, for it was a clear, cold winter day with snow upon the ground. Good heaven, said Scrooge, clasping his hands together as he looked about him. I was a boy here. He was conscious of 1,000 odours floating in the air, each one connected with 1,000 thoughts and hopes and joys and cares long, long forgotten. Your lip is trembling, said the ghost. And what is that upon your cheek? Scrooge muttered with an unusual catching in his voice that it was a pimple, and begged the ghost to lead him where it would. You recollect the way? Inquired the spirit. Remember it, cried Scrooge with fervour. I could walk it blindfold. Strange to have forgotten it for so many years, observed the ghost. Let us go on. They walked along the road, Scrooge recognising every gate and post and tree, until a little market town appeared in the distance, with its bridge, its church, and winding river. Some shaggy ponies now were seen trotting toward them, with boys upon their backs, who called to other boys in country gigs and carts driven by farmers. All these boys were in great spirits and shouted to each other until the broad fields were so full of merry music that the crisp air laughed to hear it. These are but shadows of the things that have been, said the ghost. They have no consciousness of us. The jocund travellers came on, and as they came, Scrooge knew and named them, every one. Why was he rejoiced beyond all bounds to see them? Why did his cold eye glisten and his heart leap up as they went past? Why was he filled with gladness when he heard them give each other Merry Christmas as they parted at crossroads and byways for their several homes? What was Merry Christmas to Scrooge? Out upon Merry Christmas! What good had it ever done him? The school is not quite deserted, said the ghost. A solitary child, neglected by his friends, is left there still. Scrooge knew it. They left the high road by a well-remembered lane and soon approached a mansion of dull brick. It was a large house, but one of broken fortunes. The walls were damp and mossy, the windows broken, and the gates decayed. There was an earthy savour in the air, a chilly bareness in the place, which associated itself somehow with getting too much up by candlelight and not too much to eat. They went, the ghost and Scrooge, across the hall, to a door at the back of the house. It opened before them and disclosed a long, bare, melancholy room. At a plain deal form, a lonely boy was reading near a feeble fire, and Scrooge sat down and wept to see his poor forgotten self as he used to be. I wish, he muttered, putting his hand in his pocket and looking about him, but it's too late now. What is the matter? Asked the spirit. Nothing, said Scrooge, nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should like to have given him something. That's all. The ghost smiled thoughtfully and waved its hand, saying as it did so, Let us see another Christmas. Scrooge's former self grew larger at the words, and the room became a little darker and more dirty. The panels shrunk, the windows cracked. Fragments of plaster fell out of the ceiling, and there he was, alone again, when all the other boys had gone home for the holidays. He was not reading now, but walking up and down despairingly. Scrooge looked at the ghost and glanced anxiously towards the door. It opened,
and a little girl, much younger than the boy, came darting in, and putting her arms about his neck, addressed him. "I have come to bring you home, dear brother," said the child, clapping her tiny hands and bending down to laugh. "To bring you home, home, home." "Home, Fan?" returned the boy. "Yes," said the child, brimful of glee. "Home for good and all. Home for ever and ever. Father is so much kinder than he used to be that home's like heaven. He spoke so gently to me one night when I was going to bed that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home. And he said, yes, you should, and sent me in a coach to bring you." She clapped her hands and laughed again, and stood on tiptoe to embrace him. Then she began to drag him in her childish eagerness towards the door. The children bade the school goodbye right willingly, and getting into a chaise, drove gaily down the garden sweep, the quick wheels dashing the hoarfrost and snow from off the dark leaves of the evergreens like spray. "Always a delicate creature, whom a breath might have withered," said the ghost. "But she had a large heart." "So she had," cried Scrooge. "You're right, spirit." "She died a woman," said the ghost, "and had, as I think, children." "One child," Scrooge returned. "True," said the ghost. "Your nephew?" Scrooge seemed uneasy in his mind, and answered briefly, "Yes." Although they had but that moment left the school behind them, they were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city, where shadowy passengers passed and repassed. It was made plain enough by the dressing of the shops that here, too, it was Christmas time again, but it was evening, and the streets were lighted up. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door, and asked Scrooge if he knew it. "Know it?" said Scrooge. "I was apprenticed here." They went in. At sight of an old gentleman in a wig, sitting behind such a high desk that if he had been 2 inches taller he must have knocked his head against the ceiling, Scrooge cried in great excitement, "Why, it's old Fezziwig! Bless his heart, it's Fezziwig alive again!" Old Fezziwig laid down his pen and looked up at the clock, which pointed to the hour of 7. He rubbed his hands, adjusted his capacious waistcoat, laughed all over himself, and called out in a comfortable, rich, jovial voice, "Yo there, Ebenezer! Dick!" Scrooge's former self, now a young man, came briskly in, accompanied by his fellow prentice. "Yo-ho, my boys," said Fezziwig. "No more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick! Christmas, Ebenezer! Let's have the shutters up," cried old Fezziwig with a sharp clap of his hands. "Clear away, my lads, and let's have lots of room here." Clear away. It was done in a minute. Every movable was packed off as if it were dismissed from public life for evermore. The floor was swept and watered, the lamps were trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast, substantial smile. In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In came the 6 young followers whose hearts they broke. In came all the young men and women employed in the business. In they all came, one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling. In they all came, and away they all went. 20 couple at once, down the middle and up again, round and round in various stages of affectionate grouping. Old Fezziwig, clapping his hands, cried out, "Well done!" and the fiddler plunged his hot face into a pot of porter, specially provided for that purpose. There were more dances, and there were forfeits, and more dances, and there was cake, and there were mince pies, and plenty of beer. But the great effect of the evening came when the fiddler struck up Sir Roger de Coverley. Then old Fezziwig stood out to dance with Mrs. Fezziwig. She was worthy to be his partner in every sense of the term. If that's not high praise, tell me higher and I'll use it. A positive light appeared to issue from Fezziwig's calves. They shone in every part of the dance like moons. You couldn't have predicted at any given time what would have become of them next. When the clock struck 11, this domestic ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig took their stations, one on either side of the door, and shaking hands with every person individually as he or she went out, wished him or her a Merry Christmas. During the whole of this time, Scrooge had acted like a man out of his wits. His heart and soul were in the scene, and with his former self. He corroborated everything, remembered everything, enjoyed everything, and underwent the strangest agitation. It was not until now, when the bright face of his former self was turned from them, that he remembered the ghost, and became conscious that it was looking full upon him, while the light upon its head burnt very clear. "A small matter," said the ghost, "to make these silly folks so full of gratitude." "Small!" echoed Scrooge. "Why, is it not? He has spent but a few pounds of your mortal money, 3 or 4 perhaps. Is that so much that he deserves praise?" "It isn't that," said Scrooge, heated by the remark, and speaking unconsciously like his former, not his latter self. "It isn't that, Spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. Say that his power lies in words and looks, in things so slight and insignificant that it is impossible to add and count 'em up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune." He felt the spirit's glance and stopped. "What is the matter?" asked the ghost. "Nothing particular," said Scrooge. "Something, I think," the ghost insisted. "No," said Scrooge. "No. I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now. That's all." His former self turned down the lamps, and Scrooge and the ghost again stood side by side in the open air. "My time grows short," observed the spirit. "Quick!" Again Scrooge saw himself. He was older now, a man in the prime of life. His face had not the harsh and rigid lines of later years, but it had begun to wear the signs of care and avarice. There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in the eye, which showed the passion that had taken root, and where the shadow of the growing tree would fall. He was not alone, but sat by the side of a fair young girl in a morning dress, in whose eyes there were tears which sparkled in the light that shone out of the ghost of Christmas past. "It matters little," she said softly. "To you, very little. Another idol has displaced me, and if it can cheer and comfort you in time to come, as I would have tried to do, I have no just cause to grieve." "What idol has displaced you?" he rejoined. "A golden one." "This is the even-handed dealing of the world," he said. "There is nothing on which it is so hard as poverty, and there is nothing it professes to condemn with such severity as the pursuit of wealth." "You fear the world too much," she answered gently. "I have seen your nobler aspirations fall off one by one until the master passion, gain, engrosses you. Have I not?" "What then?" he retorted. "Even if I have grown so much wiser, what then? I am not changed towards you." She shook her head. "Am I?" "Our contract is an old one. It was made when we were both poor and content to be so. When it was made, you were another man." "I was a boy," he answered impatiently. "Your own feeling tells you that you were not what you are," she returned. "I am. That which promised happiness is fraught with misery now. How often and how keenly I have thought of this, I will not say. It is enough that I have thought of it, and can release you." "Have I ever sought release?" In words? No. In what then? In a changed nature? In an altered spirit? In everything that made my love of any worth or value in your sight? If this had never been between us, said the girl, looking mildly but with steadiness upon him, tell me, would you seek me out and try to win me now? He seemed to yield to the justice of this supposition in spite of himself. But he said with a struggle, you think not? I would gladly think otherwise if I could, she answered. But if you were free today, tomorrow, yesterday, can even I believe that you would choose a dowerless girl, you who weigh everything by gain? Or choosing her, do I not know that your repentance and regret would surely follow? I do, and I release you, with a full heart for the love of him you once were. She turned her head from him. May you be happy in the life you have chosen. And they parted. Spirit, said Scrooge, show me no more. Why do you delight to torture me? One shadow more, exclaimed the ghost. No more, cried Scrooge. No more. I don't wish to see it. Show me no more. But the relentless ghost pinioned him in both his arms and forced him to observe what happened next. They were in another scene and place, a room not very large or handsome, but full of comfort. Near to the winter fire sat a beautiful young girl, so like the last that Scrooge believed it was the same, until he saw her, now a matron, sitting opposite her daughter. The noise in this room was perfectly tumultuous, for there were more children there than Scrooge, in his agitated state of mind, could count, and every child was conducting itself like 40. The consequences were uproarious beyond belief, but no one seemed to care. On the contrary, the mother and daughter laughed heartily and enjoyed it very much. But now a knocking at the door was heard, and such a rush immediately ensued that she, with laughing face, was borne towards it, the centre of a flushed and boisterous group, just in time to greet the father, who came home laden with Christmas toys and presents. Then the onslaught that was made, the shouts of wonder and delight with which every package was received, the joy and gratitude and ecstasy, they are all indescribable alike. And now Scrooge looked on more attentively than ever, when the master of the house, having his daughter leaning fondly on him, sat down with her and her mother at his own fireside. Belle, said the husband, turning to his wife with a smile, I saw an old friend of yours this afternoon. Who was it? Guess. How can I? Don't I know? She added in the same breath, laughing as he laughed. Mr. Scrooge. Mr. Scrooge it was. I passed his office window, and I could scarcely help seeing him. His partner lies upon the point of death, I hear, and there he sat alone. Quite alone in the world, I do believe. Spirit, said Scrooge in a broken voice, remove me from this place. I told you these were shadows of the things that have been, said the ghost. That they are what they are, do not blame me. Remove me, Scrooge exclaimed. I cannot bear it. He turned upon the ghost and saw that it looked upon him with a face in which, in some strange way, there were fragments of all the faces it had shown him. Leave me. Take me back. Haunt me no longer. And he seized the extinguisher cap and by a sudden action pressed it down upon the spirit's head. The spirit dropped beneath it so that the extinguisher covered its whole form, but though Scrooge pressed it down with all his force, he could not hide the light, which streamed from under it in an unbroken flood upon the floor. He was conscious of being exhausted, and further of being in his own bedroom, and had barely time to reel back to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep. Intermission.
What an arse.
This is amazing. The lights are brilliant, by the way.
Y'all enjoying it?
Yeah.
I've never read A Christmas Carol, I realized.
No?
And you just think, well, I've seen the Disney one and the Muppets one a million times, haven't I? But Dickens just paints such a clear picture of everything, doesn't he? So good.
Good.
So good, I'm good.
Until Frankie started reading, I'd have said that the Muppets was the best adaptation, but I'm loving this one now.
So glad.
I really enjoyed the BBC version last year that came out. I think it was last year.
With
it was Barter.
Oh, is that a different one? I know the one with have you seen the Simon Callow like one-man performance of it?
Yeah.
That is very good. I don't think I saw the BBC one last year.
It was like a fully sort of, fictionalized universe around as opposed to a play or something. But,
how exciting.
yeah, I thought it was very good.
I wonder if they'll be putting it back out again this year.
Ah.
I'll see if I can check it out.
Yeah, might be on iPlayer.
What's that, my darling?
It might be on iPlayer.
It is on iPlayer, yes. Available for 5 weeks.
Ah, great.
Brilliant. Yeah. Or maybe maybe somebody could drop a link to it in the chat for anybody who would be interested in checking it out. Hopefully at some point in the future, rather than just skipping from my version. Don't watch it yet. Okay, give it one more minute.
Katie says you're not to start without her. She's getting mulled wine.
Oh, come on, you can carry on. I'll tell her to hurry up.
Roger that. So I'm on speaker view because on gallery view it like messes up my internet. So will somebody shout out when Katie comes back? and we will then start again. God damn Scrooge.
Hey Lisa.
That's lovely, Frankie.
I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Hi Lisa.
Hey Ash.
Hi Ash.
Oh.
Everyone scrolls wildly.
Yeah.
It's like Tinder.
Uh-huh.
Find us the baby.
What a beautiful baby.
Such a beautiful baby.
He's so much bigger already.
We have a Katie back.
Hello.
Right, everybody. I think the intermission is about to be over. So take your seats once more, and get your drinks in hand. I'm going to mute you all, and we shall begin. Right. Awaking in the middle of a prodigiously tough snore and sitting up in bed to get his thoughts together, Scrooge had no occasion to be told that the bell was again upon the stroke of 1. He put his curtains aside and established a sharp lookout all around the bed, for he wished to challenge the spirit on the moments of its appearance and did not wish to be taken by surprise. Scrooge was ready for a good broad field of strange appearances, and nothing between a baby and a rhinoceros would have astonished him very much. Now, being prepared for almost anything, he was not by any means prepared for nothing, and consequently when the bell struck 1 and no shape appeared, he was taken with a violent fit of trembling. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a quarter of an hour went by, yet nothing came. All this time he lay upon his bed, the very core and centre of a blaze of ruddy light, which streamed upon it from the adjoining room. At last he got up softly and shuffled in his slippers to the door. The moment Scrooge's hand was on the lock, a strange voice called him by his name and bade him enter. He obeyed. It was his own room. There was no doubt about that. But it had undergone a surprising transformation. The walls and ceiling were so hung with living green that it looked a perfect grove, from every part of which bright gleaming berries glistened. The crisp leaves of holly, mistletoe, and ivy reflected back the light, as if so many little mirrors had been scattered there, and such a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimney as that dull petrification of a hearth had never known in Scrooge's time, or Marley's, or for many and many a winter season gone. Heaped up on the floor to form a kind of throne were turkeys, geese, game, poultry, great joints of meat, sucking pigs, long wreaths of sausages, mince pies, plum puddings, barrels of oysters, red-hot chestnuts, cherry-cheeked apples, juicy oranges, luscious pears, immense twelfth cakes, and seething bowls of punch that made the chamber dim with their delicious steam. In easy state upon this couch there sat a giant, glorious to see, who bore a glowing torch and held it up, high up, to shed its light on Scrooge as he came peeping round the door. "Come in," exclaimed the ghost. "Come in and know me better, man." Scrooge entered timidly and hung his head before this spirit. He was not the dogged Scrooge he had been, and though the spirit's eyes were clear and kind, he did not like to meet them. "I am the ghost of Christmas present," said the spirit. It was clothed in one simple green robe or mantle, bordered with white fur. Its feet were bare, and on its head it wore a holly wreath, set here and there with shining icicles. Its dark brown curls were long and free as its genial face, its sparkling eye, its open hand. Girded round its middle was an antique scabbard, but no sword was in it, and the ancient sheath was eaten up with rust. "You have never seen the like of me before," exclaimed the spirit. "Never." "Have never walked forth with the younger members of my family?" "I don't think I have," said Scrooge. "I am afraid I have not." "Have you had many brothers, spirit?" "More than 1,800, said the ghost. "A tremendous family to provide for," muttered Scrooge. The ghost of Christmas present rose. "Spirit," said Scrooge submissively, "conduct me where you will. If you have aught to teach me, let me profit by it." "Touch my robe." Scrooge did as he was told and held it fast. The room, the fire, the ruddy glow, the hour of night, all vanished instantly, and they stood in the city streets on Christmas morning, where the people made a rough but brisk and not unpleasant kind of music in scraping the snow from the pavement in front of their dwellings, and from the tops of their houses, plumping down into the street below and splitting into artificial little snowstorms. The house fronts looked black enough, and the windows blacker, contrasting with the smooth white sheet of snow upon the roofs. The sky was gloomy, and the streets were choked up with a dingy mist. There was nothing very cheerful in the climate or the town, and yet there was an air of cheerfulness abroad. For the people who were shoveling away on the housetops were jovial and full of glee, calling out to one another from the parapets, and now and then exchanging a facetious snowball, laughing heartily if it went right, and not less heartily if it went wrong. The poulterers' shops were still half open, and the fruiterers were radiant in their glory. There were great, round, pot-bellied baskets of chestnuts, shaped like the waistcoats of jolly old gentlemen, lolling at the doors and tumbling out into the street in their apoplectic opulence. There were ruddy, brown-faced, broad-girthed Spanish onions, shining in the fatness of their growth like Spanish friars, and winking from their shelves in wanton slyness as the girls, as they went by, and glanced demurely at the hung-up mistletoe. There were pears and apples, clustered high in blooming pyramids. There were bunches of grapes, made to dangle from conspicuous hooks that people's mouths might water as they passed. There were piles of filberts, mossy and brown, recalling in their fragrance ancient walks among the woods and pleasant shufflings ankle-deep through withered leaves. There were Norfolk biffins, squat and swarthy, setting off the yellow of the oranges and lemons, and in the great compactness of their juicy persons, urgently entreating and beseeching to be carried home in paper bags and eaten after dinner. The very gold and silver fish set forth among these choice fruits in a bowl appeared to know that there was something going on, and to a fish went gasping round and round their little world in slow and passionless excitement. The grocers. Oh, the grocers. The blended scents of tea and coffee were so grateful to the nose. The raisins were so plentiful and rare, the almonds so extremely white, the sticks of cinnamon so long and straight, the other spices so delicious, the candied fruits so caked and spotted with molten sugar as to make the coldest onlookers feel faint and subsequently bilious. The figs were moist and pulpy. The French plums blushed in modest tartness from their highly decorated boxes, and everything was good to eat and in its Christmas dress. The customers were all so hurried and so eager in the hopeful promise of the day that they tumbled up against each other at the door, crashing their wicker baskets wildly, and left their purchases upon the counter and came running back to fetch them, and committed hundreds of the like mistakes in the best humour possible. Soon there emerged from scores of by-streets, lanes and nameless turnings, innumerable people carrying their dinners to the bakers' shops. The sight of these poor revellers appeared to interest the spirit very much, for he stood with Scrooge beside him in a baker's doorway, and sprinkled incense on their dinners from his torch. "Is there a peculiar flavour in what you sprinkle from your torch?" asked Scrooge. "There is. My own." "Would it apply to any kind of dinner on this day?" asked Scrooge. "To any kindly given. To a poor one most." "Why to a poor one most?" "Because it needs it most." They went on, invisible as they had before, into the suburbs of the town. It was a remarkable quality of the ghost that, notwithstanding his gigantic size, he could accommodate himself to any place with ease, and that he stood beneath a low roof quite as gracefully as it were possible he could have done in any lofty hall. And perhaps it was the pleasure the good spirit had in showing off this power of his, or else it was his own kind, generous nature and his sympathy with all poor men that led him straight to Scrooge's clerk. On the threshold of the door the spirit smiled and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling with the sprinkling of his torch. Then up rose Mrs. Cratchit, dressed out but poorly in a twice-turned gown, but brave in ribbons, which are cheap and make a goodly show for sixpence. And she laid the cloth, assisted by Belinda Cratchit, second of her daughters, while Master Peter Cratchit plunged a fork into the saucepan of potatoes. And now two smaller Cratchits, boy and girl, came tearing in, screaming that outside the baker's they had smelt the goose and known it for their own, and basking in luxurious thoughts of sage and onion. These young Cratchits danced about the table, while Master Peter blew the fire, until the slow potatoes bubbling up knocked loudly at the saucepan lid to be let out. "What has ever got your precious father, then?" said Mrs. Cratchit, "and your brother, Tiny Tim? And Martha weren't as late last Christmas by half an hour." "Here's Martha, mother," said a girl, appearing as she spoke. "Here's Martha, mother," cried the two young Cratchits. Why, bless your heart alive, my dear, how late you are, said Mrs. Cratchit, kissing her a dozen times and taking off her shawl and bonnet for her. We had a deal of work to finish up last night, replied the girl, and had to clear away this morning, mother. Well, never mind so long as you are come, said Mrs. Cratchit. Sit you down before the fire, my dear, and have a warm. No, no, there's father coming, cried the two young Cratchits, who were everywhere at once. Hide, Martha, hide! So Martha hid herself. And in came Bob with at least 3 feet of comforter hanging down before him, and his threadbare clothes darned up and brushed to look seasonable, and Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Tiny Tim bore a little crutch and had his limbs supported by an iron frame. Why, where's our Martha? Cried Bob Cratchit, looking round. Not coming, said Mrs. Cratchit. Not coming? Said Bob, with a sudden declension in his high spirits. Not coming upon Christmas Day? Martha didn't like to see him disappointed, so she came out from behind the closet door and ran into his arms, while the two young Cratchits bore Tiny Tim off into the wash-house, that he might hear the pudding singing in the copper. And how did little Tim behave? Asked Mrs. Cratchit, when Bob had hugged his daughter to his heart's content. As good as gold, said Bob, and better. Somehow he gets thoughtful sitting by himself so much, and thinks the strangest things you ever heard. He told me, coming home, that he hoped the people saw him in the church, because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see. The crutch was heard upon the floor, and back came Tiny Tim, escorted by his brother and sister to his stool before the fire. And while Bob compounded some hot mixture in a jug with gin and lemons, Master Peter and the two ubiquitous young Cratchits went to fetch the goose, with which they soon returned in high procession. Such a bustle ensued that you might have thought a goose the rarest of all birds, a feathered phenomenon to which a black swan was a matter of course, and in truth it was something very like it in that house. There never was such a goose. Bob said he didn't believe there ever was such a goose cooked. Its tenderness and flavour, size and cheapness were the themes of universal admiration. Eked out by apple sauce and mashed potatoes, it was a sufficient dinner for the whole family. And now Mrs. Cratchit entered, flushed but smiling proudly, with the pudding, like a speckled cannonball, blazing in ignited brandy, with Christmas holly stuck into the top. Oh, a wonderful pudding. Bob Cratchit said calmly that he regarded it as the greatest success achieved by Mrs. Cratchit since their marriage. Everybody had something to say about it, but nobody said or thought it was at all a small pudding for a large family. It would have been flat heresy to do so. Any Cratchit would have blushed to hint at such a thing. At last the dinner was all done. The cloth was cleared, the hearth swept, and the fire made up. The compound in the jug being tasted and considered perfect, apples and oranges were put on the table, and a shovelful of chestnuts on the fire. Then all the Cratchit family drew round the hearth, and Bob served it out the hot stuff from the jug with beaming looks, while the chestnuts on the fire sputtered and crackled noisily. Then Bob proposed, "A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us," which all the family re-echoed. God bless us, everyone, said Tiny Tim, the last of all. He sat very close to his father's side upon his little stool. Bob held his hand in his, as if he dreaded that he might be taken from him. Spirit, said Scrooge with an interest he had never felt before, tell me if Tiny Tim will live. I see a vacant seat, replied the ghost, in the poor chimney corner, and a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die. No, no, said Scrooge. Oh, no, kind spirit, say he will be spared. What then? If he be like to die, returned the ghost, he had better do it,
and decrease the surplus population? Scrooge hung his head. Will you decide what men shall live, what men shall die? It may be that in the sight of heaven you are more worthless and less fit to live than millions like this poor man's child. Oh God, to hear the insect on the leaf pronouncing on the too much life among his hungry brothers in the dust. Scrooge bent before the ghost's rebuke, and trembling cast his eyes upon the ground. But he raised them speedily on hearing his own name. Mr. Scrooge, said Bob. I give you Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast. The founder of the feast, indeed, cried Mrs. Cratchit, reddening. I wish I had him here. I'd give him a piece of my mind to feast upon, and I hope he'd have a good appetite for it. My dear, said Bob, the children. Christmas Day. It should be Christmas Day, I am sure, said she, on which one drinks the health of such an odious, stingy, hard, unfeeling man as Mr. Scrooge. You know he is, Robert. Nobody knows it better than you do, poor fellow. My dear, was Bob's mild answer. Christmas Day? I'll drink to his health for your sake and the day's, said Mrs. Cratchit, not for his. Long length to him. A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. He'll be very merry and very happy, I have no doubt. The children drank the toast after her. It was the first of their proceedings which had no heartiness. Scrooge was the ogre of the family. The mention of his name cast a dark shadow on the party, which was not dispelled for full 5 minutes. After it had passed away, they were 10 times merrier than before. They were not a handsome family. They were not well dressed. Their shoes were far from being waterproof. But they were happy, grateful, pleased with one another, and contented with the time. And when they faded and looked happier yet in the bright sprinklings of the spirit's torch at parting, Scrooge had his eye upon them, and especially on Tiny Tim, until the last. By this time it was getting dark and snowing pretty heavily, and as Scrooge and the spirit went along the streets, the brightness of the roaring fires in kitchens, parlours, and all sorts of rooms was wonderful. Here the flickering of the blaze showed preparations for a cosy dinner, with hot plates baking through and through before the fire, and deep red curtains ready to be drawn to shut out cold and darkness. There all the children of the house were running out into the snow to meet their married sisters, brothers, cousins, uncles, aunts, and be the first to greet them. How the ghost exulted! It opened its capacious palm and floated on, outpouring with a generous hand its bright and harmless mirth on everything within its reach. And now, without a word of warning, they stood upon a bleak and desert moor, where monstrous masses of rude stone were cast about, as though it were the burial place of giants, and nothing grew but moss and furze and coarse rank grass. Down in the west the setting sun had left a streak of fiery red, which glared upon the desolation for an instant like a sullen eye, and was lost in the thick gloom of darkest night. A light shone from the window of a hut, and swiftly they advanced towards it. Passing through the wall of mud and stone, they found a cheerful company assembled round a glowing fire. An old man, in a voice that seldom rose above the howling of the wind upon the barren waste, was singing them a Christmas song. Passing on above the moor, they sped to sea. Built upon a dismal reef of sudden rocks, some league or so from the shore, there stood a solitary lighthouse. Great heaps of seaweed clung to its base, and storm birds rose and fell about it like the waves they skimmed. But even here, 2 men who watched the light had made a fire, that through the loophole in the thick stone wall shed out a ray of brightness on the awful sea. Joining their hands over the rough table at which they sat, they wished each other Merry Christmas in their can of grog.
Again the ghost sped on above the black and heaving sea, on, until they lighted on a ship. They stood beside the helmsman at the wheel, the lookout in the bow. The officers who had the watch, every man among them hummed a Christmas tune, or spoke below his breath to his companion of some bygone Christmas day. And every man on board, waking or sleeping, good or bad, had a kinder word for another on that day than on any other day in the year, and had remembered those he cared for at a distance, and had known that they delighted to remember him. While listening to the moaning of the wind and thinking what a solemn thing it was to move on through the lonely darkness over an unknown abyss whose depths were secrets as profound as death, it was a great surprise to Scrooge to hear a hearty laugh. It was a much greater surprise to recognize it as his own nephew's, and to find himself in a bright, dry, gleaming room with the Spirit standing smiling by his side. It is a fair, even-handed, noble adjustment of things that while there is infection in disease and sorrow, there is nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humour. When Scrooge's nephew laughed, Scrooge's niece by marriage laughed as heartily as he, and their assembled friends roared out lustily. "He said that Christmas was a humbug, as I live," cried Scrooge's nephew. "He believed it, too." "More shame for him, Fred," said Scrooge's niece indignantly. She was very pretty, exceedingly pretty, with a dimpled, surprised-looking face, a ripe little mouth that seemed made to be kissed, as no doubt it was, and the sunniest pair of eyes you ever saw in any creature's head. "He's a comical old fellow," said Scrooge's nephew, "that's the truth, and not so pleasant as he might be. However, his offences carry their own punishment, and I have nothing to say against him. His wealth is of no use to him. He don't do any good with it. He don't make himself comfortable with it. I am sorry for him. Who suffers by his ill whims? Himself, always. Here, he takes it into his head to dislike us, and he won't come and dine with us. What's the consequence? You don't lose much of a dinner." "Indeed, I think he loses a very good dinner," interrupted Scrooge's niece. Everybody else said the same, and they must be allowed to have been competent judges, because they had just had dinner, and with the dessert upon the table were clustered round the fire by lamplight. "Well," said Scrooge's nephew, "I mean to give him the same chance every year, whether he likes it or not, for I pity him." After tea they had some music. Then after a while they played at forfeits, for it is good to be children sometimes, and never better than at Christmas. There was first a game of blind man's buff. Of course there was. And I no more believe one young man was really blind than I believe he had eyes in his boots. The way he went after Scrooge's niece's plump sister was an outrage on the credulity of human nature. He wouldn't catch anybody else. She often cried out that it wasn't fair, and it really was not. No doubt she told him her opinion of it when they were so very confidential together behind the curtains. Then there was a game of how, when, and where. There might have been 20 people there, young and old, but they all played, and so did Scrooge. For wholly forgetting, in the interest he had in what was going on, that his voice made no sound in their ears, he sometimes came out with his guess quite loud, and very often guessed quite right, too. The ghost was greatly pleased to find him in this mood, and looked upon him with such favour that he begged like a boy to be allowed to stay. "Here is a new game," said Scrooge. "1 half-hour, Spirit, only one." It was a game called Yes and No, where Scrooge's nephew had to think of something, and the rest must find out what, he only answering to their questions, yes or no. The brisk fire of questioning to which he was exposed elicited from him that he was thinking of an animal, a live animal, rather a disagreeable animal, a savage animal, an animal that talked sometimes and lived in London and walked about the streets and didn't live in a menagerie and was not a horse or an ass or a cow or a bull or a dog or a pig or a cat or a bear. At last the plump sister cried out, I have found it out. I know what it is, Fred. What is it? Cried Fred. It's your Uncle Scrooge. Which it certainly was. Admiration was the universal sentiment, though some objected that the reply to, is it a bear, ought to have been yes. He has given us plenty of merriment, I am sure, said Fred, and it would be ungrateful not to drink his health. Uncle Scrooge, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to the old man, whatever he is. He wouldn't take it from me, but may he have it nevertheless. Uncle Scrooge. The whole scene passed off in the breath of the last words spoken by his nephew, and he and the spirit were again upon their travels. Much they saw, and far they went, and many homes they visited. It was a long night, if it were only a night. It was strange, too, that while Scrooge remained unaltered in his outward form, the ghost grew older, clearly older. Scrooge had observed this change, and looking at the spirit as they stood together, he noticed that its hair was grey. Are spirits' lives so short? Asked Scrooge. My life upon this globe is very brief, replied the ghost. It ends tonight. Tonight? Cried Scrooge. Tonight at midnight. Hark! The time is drawing near. Look! Look here! From the foldings of its robe it brought 2 children, wretched, abject, miserable. They knelt down at its feet and clung upon the outside of its garment. They were a boy and girl, yellow, meagre, ragged, scowling, wolfish. Where youth should have filled their features out, a stale and shriveled hand, like that of age, had pinched and twisted them and pulled them into shreds. No change, no degradation, no perversion of humanity in any grade has monsters half so horrible and dread. Scrooge started back, appalled. Spirit, are they yours? They are man's, said the spirit, looking down upon them. This boy is ignorance. This girl is want. Beware them both, but most of all beware this boy, for on his brow I see that written which is doom, unless the writing be erased. Have they no refuge or resource? Cried Scrooge. Are there no prisons? Said the spirit. Are there no workhouses? The bell struck 12. Scrooge looked about him for the ghost and saw it not. As the last stroke ceased to vibrate, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and, lifting up his eyes, beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, like a mist along the ground, coming towards him. The phantom slowly, gravely, silently approached. It was shrouded in a deep black garment which concealed its head, its face, its form, and left nothing of it visible save one outstretched hand. But for this it would have been difficult to detach its figure from the night and separate it from the darkness by which it was surrounded. Its mysterious presence filled Scrooge with a solemn dread. I am in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come, said Scrooge. The spirit answered not, but pointed onward with its hand. You are about to show me shadows of the things that have not happened, but will happen in the time before us, Scrooge pursued. Is that so, spirit? The upper portion of the garment was contracted for an instant in its folds, as if the spirit had inclined its head. Although well used to ghostly company by this time, Scrooge feared the silent shape so much that his legs trembled beneath him, and he found that he could hardly stand. It thrilled him with a vague, uncertain horror to know that behind the dusky shroud there were ghostly eyes intently fixed upon him, while he could see nothing but a spectral hand. "Ghost of the future!" he exclaimed. "I fear you more than any spectre I have seen.
But as I know your purpose is to do me good, and as I hope to live to be another man from what I was, I am prepared to bear you company, and do it with a thankful heart. Will you not speak to me?" It gave him no reply. The hand was pointed straight before them. "Lead on," said Scrooge. "Lead on. The night is waning fast, and it is precious time to me, I know. Lead on, spirit." The phantom moved away. Scrooge followed. They scarcely seemed to enter the city, for the city rather seemed to spring up about them. But there they were in the heart of it, among the merchants, who hurried up and down and chinked the money in their pockets and conversed in groups. The spirit stopped beside one little knot of businessmen. Scrooge advanced to listen to their talk. "No," said a great fat man with a monstrous chin. "I don't know much about it either way. I only know he's dead." "When did he die?" inquired another. "Last night, I believe." "Why, what was the matter with him?" asked a third, taking a vast quantity of snuff out of a very large snuff-box. "I thought he'd never die." "God knows," said the first with a yawn. "What's he done with his money?" asked a red-faced gentleman with a pendulous excrescence on the end of his nose that shook like the gills of a turkey-cock. "I haven't heard," said the man with the large chin, yawning again. "He hasn't left it to me, that's all I know." This pleasantry was received with a general laugh. "It's likely to be a very cheap funeral," said the same speaker, "for upon my life I don't know of anybody to go to it. Suppose we make up a party and volunteer?" "I don't mind going if a lunch is provided," observed the gentleman with the excrescence on his nose, "but I must be fed." Another laugh. Speakers and listeners strolled away and mixed with other groups. Scrooge knew the men, and he looked about the place for his own image, but another man stood in his accustomed corner, and though the clock pointed to his usual time of day for being there, he saw no likeness of himself among the multitudes. Quiet and dark, beside him stood the phantom with its outstretched hand. He fancied from the turn of the hand that the unseen eyes were looking at him keenly. It made him shudder, feel very cold. They left the busy scene and went into an obscure part of the town where Scrooge had never penetrated before. The ways were foul and narrow, the shops and houses wretched, the people drunken, slipshod. Alleys and archways, like so many cesspools, disgorged their offences upon the straggling streets, and the whole quarter reeked with crime, with filth, with misery. In this den there was a low-browed, beetling shop, where iron, old rags, bottles, bones, and greasy offal were bought. Upon the floor within were piled up heaps of rusty keys, nails, chains, refuse iron of all kinds. Secrets that few would like to scrutinize were bred and hidden in mountains of unseemly rags, masses of corrupted fat and sepulchres of bone. Sitting in among the wares he dealt by a charcoal stove was a grey-haired old rascal. Scrooge and the phantom came into the presence of this man, just as a woman with a heavy bundle slunk into the shop. But she had scarcely entered when another woman, similarly laden, came in too, and she was closely followed by a man in faded black. After a short period of blank astonishment, they all three burst into a laugh. "The charwoman, the laundress, and the undertaker's man," cried she who had entered first. "Look here, old Joe, here's a chance. If we haven't all three met here without meaning it." "You couldn't have met in a better place," said old Joe, removing his pipe from his mouth. "Come into the parlour." The old man raked the fire together with an old stair-rod and trimmed his smoky lamp. The woman who had already spoken threw her bundle on the floor and sat down on a stool, looking with a bold defiance at the other two. "What odds, then? What odds, Mrs. Dilber?" said the woman.
Every person has a right to take care of themselves. He always did. That's true indeed, said the laundress. No man more so. Very well then, cried the woman. Who's the worse for the loss of a few things like these? Not a dead man, I suppose. No, indeed, said Mrs. Dilber, laughing. If he wanted to keep him after he was dead, wicked old screw, pursued the woman, why wasn't he natural in his lifetime? If he had been, he'd have had somebody to look after him instead of lying gasping out his last there, alone by himself. Open that bundle, old Joe, and let me know the value of it. I'm not afraid to be the first. We knew pretty well that we were helping ourselves before we met here, I believe. It's no sin. Open the bundle, Joe. But the gallantry of her friends would not allow of this, and the man in faded black, mounting the breech first, produced his plunder. It was not extensive. A seal or two, a pencil case, a pair of sleeve buttons, and a brooch of no great value were all. They were examined and appraised by old Joe, who chalked the sums he was disposed to give for each upon the wall. "That's your account," said Joe, "and I wouldn't give another sixpence if I was to be boiled for not doing it. Who's next?" Mrs. Dilber was next. Sheets and towels, a little wearing apparel, 2 old-fashioned silver teaspoons, a pair of sugar tongs, and a few boots. Her account was stated on the wall in the same manner. "And now undo my bundle, Joe," said the first woman. Joe went down on his knees, and having unfastened a great many knots, dragged out a large and heavy roll of some dark stuff. "What do you call this?" said Joe. "Bed curtains. You don't mean to say you took 'em down, rings and all, with him lying there?" said Joe. "Yes, I do," replied the woman. "Why not?" "You were born to make your fortune," said Joe, "and you'll certainly do it." "I certainly shan't hold my hand for the sake of such a man as he was, I promise you, Joe," returned the woman coolly. "Don't drop that oil upon the blankets now." "His blankets?" asked Joe. "Whose else's, do you think?" replied the woman. "He isn't likely to take cold without 'em, I dare say. Oh, you may look through that shirt till your eyes ache, but you won't find a hole in it nor a threadbare place. It's the best he had, and a fine one too. I'd have wasted it if it hadn't been for me." "What do you call wasting of it?" asked old Joe. "Putting it on him to be buried in, to be sure," replied the woman with a laugh. "Somebody was fool enough to do it, but I took it off again." Scrooge listened to this dialogue in horror. As they sat grouped about their spoil in the scanty light afforded by the old man's lamp, he viewed them with a detestation and disgust which could hardly have been greater, though they had been marketing the corpse itself. "Spirit," said Scrooge, shuddering from head to foot. I see. The case of this unhappy man might be my own. My life tends that way now. Merciful heaven, what is this?" He recoiled in terror, for the scene had changed, and now he almost touched a bed. A bare, uncurtained bed, on which, beneath a ragged sheet, there lay a something covered up, which, though it was dumb, announced itself in awful language. Scrooge glanced towards the phantom. Its steady hand was pointed to the head. The cover was so carelessly adjusted that the slightest raising of it, the motion of a finger upon Scrooge's part, would have disclosed the face. He thought, if this man could be raised up now, what would be his foremost thoughts? Avarice, hard dealing, griping cares? They have brought him to a rich end, truly. He lay in the dark, empty house with not a man, woman, or child to say that he was kind to me in this or that, and for the memory of one kind word I will be kind to him. There was a sound of gnawing rats beneath the hearthstone. What they wanted in the room of the dead, and why they were so restless and disturbed, Scrooge did not dare to think. "Spirit," he said, "this is a fearful place. In leaving it, I shall not leave its lesson, trust me. Let us go." Still the ghost pointed with an unmoved finger to the head. "I understand you," Scrooge returned, "and I would do it if I could. But I have not the power, Spirit. I have not the power." Again it seemed to look upon him. "Let me see some tenderness connected with a death," said Scrooge, quite agonized, "or this dark chamber will be forever present to me." The ghost conducted him through several streets familiar to his feet, and they entered poor Bob Cratchit's house, the dwelling he had visited before, and found the mother and the children seated round the fire. Quiet. Very quiet. The noisy little Cratchits were as still as statues in one corner, and sat looking up at Peter, who had a book before him. The mother and her daughters were engaged in sewing, but surely they were very quiet. The mother laid her work upon the table and put her hand up to her face. "The colour hurts my eyes," she said. "They're better now again. It makes them weak by candlelight, and I wouldn't show weak eyes to your father when he comes home for the world. It must be near his time." "Past it, rather," Peter answered, shutting up his book. "But I think he has walked a little slower than he used these last few evenings, Mother." They were very quiet again. At last she said, and in a steady, cheerful voice that only faltered once, I have known him walk with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder very fast indeed, but he was very light to carry," she resumed, intent upon her work, "and his father loved him so that it was no trouble. No trouble. And there is your father at the door." She hurried out to meet him, and Bob came in. Bob was very cheerful with them, and spoke pleasantly to all the family. He looked at the work upon the table, and praised the industry and speed of Mrs. Cratchit and the girls. "You went today, then, Robert?" said his wife. "Yes, my dear," returned Bob. "I wish you could have gone. It would have done you good to see how green a place it is. But you'll see it often. I promised him I would walk there on a Sunday." "My child!" cried Bob. "My little child!" He broke down all at once. He couldn't help it. If he could have helped it, he and his child would have been farther apart, perhaps, than they were. When he had thought a little and composed himself, he said, "My dears, however and whenever we part from one another, I am sure we shall none of us forget Tiny Tim, shall we? Or this first parting that there was among us." "Never, father," cried they all. "And I know," said Bob, "I know, my dears, that when we recollect how patient he was, though he was a little child, we shall not quarrel easily among ourselves and forget poor Tiny Tim in doing it." "No, never, father," they all cried again. "I am very happy," said Bob. "I am very happy." "Spectre," said Scrooge, "something informs me that our parting moment is at hand. I know it, but I know not how. Tell me what man that was whom we saw lying dead." The ghost of Christmas yet to come conveyed him as before, though this time the spirit did not stay for anything, but went straight on until they reached an iron gate. Scrooge paused to look round before entering. A churchyard. Here, then, the wretched man whose name he now had to learn lay underneath the ground. It was a worthy place, walled in by houses, overrun by grasses and weeds, choked up with too much burying, fat with repleted appetite. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. He advanced towards it, trembling. The phantom was exactly as it had been, but he dreaded that he saw new meaning in its solemn shape. "Before I draw nearer to that stone to which you point," said Scrooge, "answer me one question. Are these the shadows of the things that will be, or are they shadows of things that may be only?" Still the ghost pointed downward to the grave by which it stood. "Men's courses will foreshadow certain ends, to which, if persevered in, they must lead," said Scrooge. "But if the courses be departed from, the ends will change. Say it is thus with what you show me." The spirit was immovable as ever. Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went, and following the finger, read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge. "Am I that man who lay upon the bed?" he cried upon his knees. The finger pointed from the grave to him and back again. "No, spirit! Oh, no! No, spirit!" he cried, tight clutching at its robe. "Hear me! I am not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been but for this. Why show me this if I am past all hope?" For the first time, the hand appeared to shake. "Good spirit," he pursued, as down upon the ground he fell before it, "your nature intercedes for me and pities me. Assure me that I may yet change these shadows you have shown me by an altered life. I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me I may smudge away the writing on this stone." In his agony, he caught the spectral hand. It sought to free itself and repulsed him. Holding up his hands in a last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own, the room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own, to make amends in. "I will live in the past, the present, and the future," Scrooge repeated as he scrambled out of bed. "The spirits of all three shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees, old Jacob, on my knees." He was so fluttered and so glowing with his good intentions that his broken voice would scarce answer to his call. He had been sobbing violently in his conflict with the spirit, and his face was wet with tears. "They are not torn down," cried Scrooge, folding one of his bed curtains in his arms. "They are not torn down, rings and all. They are here. I am here. The shadows of the things that would have been may be dispelled. They will be. I know they will." His hands were busy with his garments all this time, turning them inside out, putting them on upside down, tearing them, mislaying them, making them parties to every kind of extravagance. "I don't know what to do," cried Scrooge, laughing and crying in the same breath, and tangling himself up in his stockings. "I am as light as a feather. I am as merry as a schoolboy. I am as giddy as a drunken man. A Merry Christmas to everybody. A Happy New Year to all the world. Hello there! Hello!" He had frisked into the sitting room and was now standing there, perfectly winded. "I don't know what day of the month it is," said Scrooge. "I don't know how long I've been among the spirits. I don't know anything. I'm quite a baby. Never mind. I don't care. I'd rather be a baby. Hello! Hello there!" He was checked in his transports by the churches ringing out the lustiest peals he had ever heard. Running to the window, he opened it and put out his head.
No fog, no mist. Clear, bright, jovial, stirring, cold, cold, piping for the blood to dance to. Golden sunlight, heavenly sky, sweet fresh air, merry bells. Oh, glorious, glorious. What's today? Cried Scrooge, calling downward to a boy in Sunday clothes. Eh? Returned the boy with all his might of wonder. What's today, my fine fellow? Said Scrooge. Today? Replied the boy. Why, Christmas Day. It's Christmas Day, said Scrooge to himself. I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. They can do anything they like. Of course they can. Of course they can. Hello, my fine fellow. Hello, returned the boy. Do you know the poulterers in the next street but one at the corner? Scrooge inquired. I should hope I did, replied the lad. An intelligent boy, said Scrooge. A remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there, the big one? What, the one as big as me? Returned the boy. Ah, what a delightful boy, said Scrooge. It's a pleasure to talk to him. Yes, my buck. It's hanging there now, replied the boy. Is it? Said Scrooge. Go and buy it. No, I am in earnest. Go and buy it and tell them to bring it here that I may give them the direction where to take it. Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you a half-crown. The boy was off like a shot. I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's, whispered Scrooge, rubbing his hands and splitting with a laugh. He shan't know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim. The hand in which he wrote the address was not a steady one, but write it he did somehow, and went downstairs to open the street door, ready for the coming of the poulterer's man. Here came the turkey, and it was a turkey. He never could have stood upon his legs, that bird. He would have snapped them off short in a minute, like sticks of sealing wax. Why, it's impossible to carry that to Camden Town, said Scrooge. You must have a cab. And he paid for the turkey, and paid for the cab, and recompensed the boy, and sat down breathless in his chair again, and chuckled till he cried. Shaving was not an easy task, for his hand continued to shake very much, and shaving requires attention even when you don't dance while you're at it. But if he had cut the end of his nose off, he would put a piece of sticking plaster over it and been quite satisfied. He dressed himself all in his best, and at last got out into the streets. The people were by this time pouring forth, as he had seen them with the ghost of Christmas present. And walking with his hands behind him, Scrooge regarded every one with a delighted smile. He looked so irresistibly pleasant, in a word, that 3 or 4 good-humoured fellows said, "Good morning, sir. A Merry Christmas to you." He had not gone far when, coming on towards him, he beheld the portly gentleman who had walked into his counting-house the day before and said, "Scrooge and Marley's, I believe." It sent a pang across his heart to think how this old gentleman would look upon him when they met. But he knew what path lay straight before him, and he took it. "My dear sir," said Scrooge, quickening his pace and taking the old gentleman by both his hands, "how do you do? I hope you succeeded yesterday. It was very kind of you. A Merry Christmas to you, sir." "Mr. Scrooge?" "Yes," said Scrooge, "that is my name. I fear it may not be pleasant to you. Allow me to ask your pardon, and will you have the goodness—" Here Scrooge whispered in his ear. "Oh, Lord bless me!" cried the gentleman, as if his breath were taken away. "My dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious?" "If you please," said Scrooge. "Not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you. Will you do me that favour?" "My dear sir," said the other, shaking hands with him, "I don't know what to say to such munificence." "Don't say anything, please," retorted Scrooge. "Come and see me. Will you come and see me?" "I will," cried the old gentleman. And it was clear he meant to do it. "Thank ye," said Scrooge. "I am much obliged to you. I thank you 50 times. Bless you." He went to church,
and walked about the streets and watched the people hurrying to and fro and patted children on the head and questioned beggars and looked down into the kitchens of houses and up to the windows and found that everything could yield him pleasure. He had never dreamed that any walk, that anything could give him so much happiness. In the afternoon, he turned his steps towards his nephew's house. He passed the door a dozen times before he had the courage to go up and knock, but he made a dash and did it. "Is your master at home, my dear?" said Scrooge to the girl.
"Yes, sir. He's in the dining room, sir, along with mistress. I'll show you upstairs, if you please."
"Thank you, my dear," said Scrooge, with his hand already on the dining room knock. "He knows me." He turned it gently. "Fred," said Scrooge. Dear heart alive, how his niece by marriage started. "Why, bless my soul!" cried Fred. "Who's that?" "It's I, your Uncle Scrooge. I have come to dinner. Will you let me in, Fred?" Let him in. It's a mercy he didn't shake his arm off. He was at home in 5 minutes. Nothing could be heartier. His niece looked just the same. So did the plump sister when she came. So did everyone when they came. Wonderful party, wonderful games, wonderful happiness. But he was early at the office next morning. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late, that was the thing he had his heart set upon. And he did it. The clock struck 9. No Bob. 1/4 past. No Bob. He was full 18 minutes and a half behind his time. Scrooge sat with his door wide open that he might see him come in. His hat was off before he opened the door, his comforter too. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away his pen as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock. "Hello," growled Scrooge in his accustomed voice, as near as he could feign it. "What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?" "I am very sorry, sir," said Bob. "I am behind my time." "You are?" repeated Scrooge. "Yes, I think you are. Step this way, sir, if you please." "It's only once a year, sir," pleaded Bob. "It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir." "Now, I'll tell you what, my friend," said Scrooge. "I am not going to stand this sort of thing any longer. And therefore," he continued, leaping from his stool and giving Bob such a dig in the waistcoat that he staggered back again, "and therefore I am about to raise your salary." Bob trembled and got a little nearer to the ruler. He had a momentary idea of knocking Scrooge down with it, holding him and calling to the people in the court for help and a strait waistcoat. "A Merry Christmas, Bob," said Scrooge, with an earnestness that could not be mistaken as he clapped him on the back. "A merrier Christmas, Bob, my good fellow, than I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavour to assist your family, and we will discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a Christmas bowl of smoking bishop. Bob, make up the fires and buy another coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit." Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but he let them laugh, and little heeded them. For he was wise enough to know that nothing ever happened on this globe for good at which some people did not have their fill of laughter in the outset. His own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that be truly said of us, and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, every one. The end. Yeah.
Right.
That was nice. That was nice. I enjoyed it.
Who knew it was that good?
Merry Christmas, everybody.
That was emotional. Good grief.
Bracken, did you cry? Are you having a sniffle? Yes! Yes! I'm so happy.
I always try at like any Christmas Carol, every single one of them. Like I've been to like, I've seen the Muppets Christmas Carol. I weep uncontrollably at that. Every single time I see the one with Guy Pearce from the BBC, every single time I go to like in public, I go for a play at Christmas time and I'm just crying. Like,
well, one should.
It's a beautiful story.
It really is. It really is. I love it so much.
And you doing the bit where Cratchit is getting all teary about Tiny Tim, I was like, oh.
Yeah, I feel you.
Well, he's part of his comforter, like wandering around in a duvet.
So sad.
Is that what it means by comforter? Does it mean a duvet?
It's a long scarf, I think, like a like scarf that you wind round like a million times. Right. Okay. I think we've had the story, and I think it's possibly time to move on to the next part of the evening. So if everybody is ready and up for it, I think we'll maybe have the little candle ceremony before we get started with the live music.
Can we have like 30 seconds to pop to the loo?
Absolutely. Okay. 2 minutes. We have 2 minutes.
You can see lights, Kate. Yes, I can. Would you like to know?
Right, I'm gonna
see while they're away doing their peeing, can I just mention a couple of notes?
Notes! The best! Yes. Absolutely.
I mean, I stopped taking the notes because it was very emotional at the end, but very quickly, Scrooge, I mean, it's so sad that his name is Scrooge. Like, we still think of Scrooge as being like a really mean thing, and yet he's the hero. Like, he turns out okay. We should all be like Scrooge. We should all change our ways. He's so good. And also, as he is like, he feels like he's the racist uncle that you invite to dinner, and his nephew was bad, and he was all like, oh, you can't even say Merry Christmas without being boiled in your own pudding. It's very weird. Anyway, yeah, my theory on the whole thing is that Marley was really, really good at his job, and Scrooge wasn't.
Ooh.
And Scrooge had imposter syndrome. And he spent the whole time working really hard and be like, you have to work as hard as you can. And therefore, that's why he was just a miserable person. He was just an imposter. That's all it is. Also, Marley apparently had pigtails, which was a weird thing that I was picturing. I don't know if anyone else pictured the ghost in pigtails a bit strangely.
I think it's a wig. It's the wig. It's a wig with a plait at the back that they used to wear.
Yeah. But if you want to picture Marley in pigtails and Scrooge in stockings, then like by all
away you go. No shaming.
I was waiting for Trunchbull to pick up Marley and swing him round by the pigtails and throw him away.
What an incredible crossover.
Any dreadful buffs? No.
The last thing was just that There's one bit where they talk about gentlemen lolling at the doors. Just imagine them all just sitting around going, lol.
Oh dear me. Oh dear me.
Yeah. Also, it was just such a classic Frankie story because it had like a huge amount of food description in the middle that made me go, I really want a feast. Plus, like descriptions of the ocean happening as well. So it felt like, wow, what a ride. That was...
I did look up what a
You had to what, my darling?
Smoking bishop.
Smoking bishop.
Pretty much mulled wine, but involving a roasted lemon.
Ooh. Okay, let's make that this Christmas.
That sounds pretty good.
Sounds amazing.
Could make that.
Right, everybody. I think we are mostly all back. So I think let's go on with the little ceremony bit before we get onto the live music. How does everyone feel about that?
I'm slightly afraid of lighting my cat on fire, but
what's that, my darling?
I said I'm slightly afraid I'm going to end up lighting my cat on fire.
You try not to light the cat on fire. Right. Okay. So we are going to start. I'm gonna dim my lights if people want to dim their lights. But we're going to start with a poem from Rory. Rory, my darling, if you are around and available.
Hey, sure. So yeah, this is a poem that I wrote this afternoon, actually, because yeah, Bracken and I went up the hill to watch the sunrise and stuff, and it turned out we weren't alone. It's called Solstice, not surprising. The wind turbine, a glowering winch. Come on, you fuck. Hauling the winter sun to the horizon. Strangers all, in ones and twos, stiff and silent, staring east in furtive ritual. We take nothing for granted, not even the dawn. This year has made every one of us a pagan. Rasping crows and whining dogs as we descend. A tight-lipped good morning to the walkers, in case saying makes it so.
Thank you, my darling. Now, if people would like to do the ceremony with me, I would like you to light one of your candles as safely as possible and without setting fire to your cat. And then you're going to hold your lit candle in your left hand and your unlit candle in your right hand. Now, this has been a shitty year. It's been full of stress and sadness and loneliness and uncertainty. We've all been grieving in one way or another, and for many of us, never more so than the past couple of days. The gathering darkness has never felt like such a horribly potent metaphor. But in the midst of all this difficulty and upheaval, in the midst of loss, you have done something incredible, something that has taken strength and will and endurance. You've made it. You're still here. We're all still here. If there's one thing I'm proud of this year, it's that. And I hope you are too. I want to take a moment just now to think not only of the things we're hoping to leave behind in this year, but the things we've gained that we want to carry with us into the next. Whether it's a new skill you've learned, like baking bread, or a new friend you've made, or an old one you've reconnected with, or simply a time when you've reached out to someone or someone has reached out to you. It could just be the unexpected fact of your own capacity for endurance, for getting through something you thought you couldn't get through. So just take a moment to think about that and be proud of yourself. And as you light the new candle from the old one, I want you to think about how you're not a lone candle in the darkness, no matter how much it may feel like it at times. We are all here to take light from each other, and if yours goes out, we are all here to get it going again. This community is your home, whether you are an active participant or an occasional spectator. If you're here, we love you, and we're going to keep looking after you, even after the dark recedes. That said, 2020 can get fucked. Happy solstice, everybody. I love you. Now, just before we finish and move on to the music, Bracken is going to read a poem by Liz Lockhead called In the Midwinter.
At midday, on the year's midnight, into my mind came, I saw the new moon late yestreen, with the old moon in her arms. Though no, there is no moon, of course. There's nothing very much of anything to speak of in the sky, except a gay dreich greyness, rain laden over Glasgow. And today there is the very least of even this for us to get. But the light comes back. The light always comes back. And this begins tomorrow with however many minutes more of sun and serotonin. Meanwhile, there will be the winter moon for us to love the longest, fat in the frosty sky, among the sharpest stars, and lines of old songs we can't remember. Why, we know, or when we first heard them. Will I come back, once in a blue moon to us, unbidden, and bless us with their long-travelled light.
Thank you, Bracken. Now, if you haven't already done so, I'd like you to blow out your 2020 candle. If you would like to keep the new candle burning, go for it. Or if it's in danger of setting your cat afire, maybe blow all of your candles out. But happy solstice, everybody. And thank you all so much for coming and being here tonight and every time that you've come. It's meant the world. So now we are going to go ahead and let's have another couple of minutes break so that I can go to the loo and everyone can wipe their tears or pour another drink. And then let's have some live music, shall we? Woohoo! Cool.
Just while we're on break, Bracken and Rory, both of those were fucking beautiful.
Right.
Can I add a poem?
Oh, hold on.
Especially my sleeps, it's really hard. It is really hard.
I mean, Ainsley, I don't think that this group of people is really opposed to more poetry. If you're
Can't go
thinking about it.
Well, hold on. Let's have more poetry in the after chat, because I'm conscious that it is 10 o'clock and we've got a hella bunch of music to get through, which is going to be good as hell. So I shall return momentarily and then we'll get cracking. I haven't sorted a schedule. This is going to be very much
to mention not too late.
My parents need to go to work tomorrow.
Oh, in that case, how would Nick and Papa McAllister feel about going first? Amazing.
Yep.
Give me a minute and I shall return. And then
you can have 2 minutes if you want.
2 minutes.
Luxury.
You're too kind.
Generous souls.
I'm so worried about singing now that I've been weeping, because I'm going to start weeping again when somebody else starts singing and it's going to be a whole thing.
How that works.
Yeah. It's okay, because if it happens to you, it's going to happen to all of us.
No, because then you'll
Just think of the Amy Winehouse song, like "These Tears Cry on Their Own" or whatever it's called.
My tears cry on their own.
I think it's dry.
But it's such
dry. It's true. They do. They dry on their own.
like an oh yeah, they do. But it's such an upbeat song though as well. Which I like. Quite it.
It's okay. The crying will just bring out the rasp in your voice. It'll sound extra jazzy and grovelly. It'll be good.
The crying will bring out the inability to hold a note, I think, is the more of the issue.
Fine. Yeah, I feel you.
The crying probably goes quite all right with Romanian carols because quite a few of them are just like up and down notes, so it doesn't quite matter.
Did I hear Andrade saying that we're going to have some Romanian carols?
I was saying that the crying
We have Robot Andrade. Uh-oh.
This is what Romanian carols
really matter with them because they kind of go up and...
Oh no, this is a very exciting robotic Andrade. Oh.
Oh dear.
No, sweetie.
so tough when you live through the internet.
Okay.
Isn't it just?
It's officially been a couple of minutes. And how would everyone feel about some music starting?
Yes, please.
Okay, right, I'm going to mute everybody. So first up, we have, who do we have? We have Nick and Papa McAllister, who...
Gaffer.
Gaffer. We have Nick and the Gaffer.
It's on.
Turn on. Right, okay. So, good.
They practiced this for about 2 hours today.
It
was adorable.
I can't remember who requested this. Was it M?
No, it was Bracken.
It was Bracken. However, when I was singing earlier, I realised how not this year this has turned out to be, so I apologise for that. Anyway. Okay.
I really like Christmas. It's sentimental, I know, but I just really like it. And I am hardly religious. I'd rather break bread with Dawkins than Desmond to be honest. And yes, I have all the usual objections to consumerism, the commercialization of an ancient religion, the westernization of a dead Palestinian press ganged into selling PlayStations and beer. But I just really like it. I'm looking forward to Christmas, though I'm not expecting a visit from Jesus. I'll be seeing my dad, my brother and sisters, my gran and my mom. They'll be drinking white wine in the summer. I'll be seeing my dad, my brother and sisters, my gran and my mom. They'll be drinking white wine in the sun. I don't go in for ancient wisdom just because ideas are tenacious. It doesn't mean that they're worthy. I get freaked out by churches. Some of the hymns that they sing have nice chords, but the lyrics are dodgy. And yes, I have all of the usual objections to the miseducation of children who in tax-exempt institutions are taught to externalize blame and to feel ashamed and to judge things as plain right or wrong. And I quite like the song. I'm not expecting great presents. The old combination of socks, jocks, and chocolates is just fine by me. 'Cause I'll be seeing my dad, my brother and sisters, my gran and my mom. They'll be drinking white wine in the sun. I'll be seeing my dad, my brother and sisters, my gran and my mom. They'll be drinking white wine in the sun. And you, my baby girl, my jet-lagged infant daughter, you'll be handed around the room like a puppy at a primary school. And you won't understand, though you will know someday, that wherever you are and whatever you face, these are the people who make you feel safe in this world. My sweet blue-eyed girl. And if my baby girl, when you're 21 or 31, Christmas comes around and you find yourself 9,000 miles from home, you know whatever comes, your brother and sisters and me and your mom will be waiting for you in the sun when Christmas comes. Your brother and sisters, your aunts and your uncles, grandparents, cousins, and me and your mom will be waiting for you in the sun, drinking white wine in the sun. Darling, whenever you come, drinking white wine in the sun, you in the sun. Darling, wherever you come, waiting for you in the sun, waiting. I really like Christmas. It's sentimental, I know.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Oh God,
that was beautiful.
That was so beautiful.
That was excellent, Nick.
Thank you.
I think what I liked about that was maybe like 90% that, and then 5% each, like Bracken crying their eyes out and Gordon like singing along.
Yeah.
That was incredible. Thank you both so much.
The voice is quite similar to his.
Yeah, actually, you're not wrong. Like, you've definitely got a...
He's a good mimic.
So Katie tells me all the time whenever I sing a cover, I always sing like the person that I'm covering. And I think
I do that quite a bit too.
Fun to play with that.
Yeah.
And started growing the dreads.
I just don't have any personal style, really.
Sign her on, you'll be great.
Said that about Ray Charles, you know, early on.
Right, everybody. So next up we have Jenny, who is going to do Silver Bells for us. Jenny, are you ready? Oh, where is Jenny? Is Jenny here? Jenny there. Jenny, can you hear us? You are muted. I can't hear. Can anyone else hear Jenny? Oh no. Oh no, Jenny, we can't hear you.
You hear me now?
Oh yes, that's better.
Good. City sidewalks, busy sidewalks, dressed in holiday style. In the air, there's a feeling of Christmas. Children laughing, people passing, meeting smile after smile, and on every street corner you hear silver bells, silver bells. It's Christmas time in the city. Ring-a-ling, hear a ring. Soon it will be Christmas Day. City street lights, even stoplights, blinking red and green as the shoppers rush home with their treasures. Hear the snow crunch, see the kids punch. This is Santa's big scene, and above all the bustle, you hear silver bells, silver bells. It's Christmas time in the city. Ring-a-ling, hear a ring. Soon it will be Christmas Day.
Yay! That was very gorgeous. Thank you so much, my love. It was coming through as weirdly quiet for me, but then by the end, like Zoom clearly worked out we were listening to some music and like made it louder. So thanks Zoom, you're a pal.
Does anyone remember, I think, whether you turn on or off original sound means that it's more likely to pick up music?
So
if you turn on original sound,
and also auto volume adjust turned off.
Ooh. Okay, that's good to know. I mean, Jenny, if there was any possibility that you could have a look at those settings before your next one, that would be amazing, just so that we can get the full benefit of your
The original sound one is in just if you hover over the top left of your video area.
Hold on, I'm going to redirect technical chat to the chat, and we're going to go on with the music, I think is the plan. Nis, are you ready to do a thing for us?
Yes, I am. I am trying to do the audio thing. Something. If I do, I'm just gonna do something and then tell me how that sounds. Okay, cool, great. So I see that I'm sitting here in shadow, so I don't think there's much to do about that. Can go into that does help. Anyway, I was originally going to do another piece, not the one that I'm actually going to be playing, because it would give me an opportunity to explain some Danish mythology that you may or may not know. And then I'm actually moving on. But I couldn't. I didn't practice it well enough to both be able to play it and singing at the same time. So I'm going to go with one of the ones that I usually play for Christmas, that people sing along and dance along. Do we have the time for me to explain the thing about mythology anyway?
Honestly, probably not.
Okay, cool.
We've got a heck of a lot of music.
Great.
If you want to stick around for the after chat, I think we would all love to hear it.
I'll just go straight ahead then. Sikken voldsom trængsel overlam. Det er koldt, og man må gå sig varm. Lygten tændes klokken 4. Alt skal være aftenmad. Midt på gaden sælges træer og frugt. Se butikken, hvor den stråler smukt. Bare kan man få i tusindvis. Tænk den bare under en købspris. Pris. Tænk dem bare under en pris. Tænk dem bare under en købspris. Når man ikke er en doven krop, står man julemorgen tidlig op. Så får man sig en lille lur. Tænk, så får man sig en lille lur. And I'm just gonna stop it there. It has a bunch of verses, but it's all the same thing.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Also, it's so nice to see you.
You too.
Okay, so next up, I think we have M. Who is going to do something potentially a little different.
Yeah, I'm going to do something a little different. This is more a couple wintry tunes. I like to think of them as Disney classics or modern Disney classics as opposed to the old ones. So yeah, I'm just going to jump right in once I actually make sure I have what I need open. Elsa, do you want to build a snowman? Come on, let's go and play. I never see you anymore. Come out the door, it's like you've gone away. We used to be best buddies, and now we're not. I wish you would tell me why. Do you want to build a snowman? It doesn't have to be a snowman. Go away, Anna. Okay. Bye. Do you want to build a snowman? Or ride our bikes around the halls? I think some company is overdue. I started talking to the pictures on the walls, hanging there, Joan. It gets a little lonely. All these empty rooms, just watching the hours tick by. Elsa, please, I know you're in there. People are asking where you've been. They say have courage, and I'm trying to. I'm right out here for you. Just let me in. We only have each other. It's just you and me. What are we gonna do? Do you wanna build a snowman.
You're the fucking cutest!
You're so cute.
So cute.
Oh, you hit those high notes really beautifully.
Yeah, that was lovely and adorable.
All right, would you like one more Frozen tune before we move on to something else?
Yes, go for it. Oh. You're muted.
All right. Done.
Reindeer are better than people. Sven, don't you think it's true?
Yeah, people will beat you and curse you and cheat you. Every one of them's bad except you. Oh, thanks, buddy. But
People smell better than reindeer. Sven, don't you think I'm right?
once again, that's true. For all except you.
You've got me. Let's call it a night. Good night. Don't let the frost bite.
Too freaking cute. That was very adorable. Thank you. Okay, so next up, we have a special guest. Everyone is a special guest, but this is an exciting special guest. Beaners Alan is going to sing for us. Woo! Woo!
Hi, nice to meet you. Alan just went, I'm not that special a guest.
Alan was a very special guest.
Alan, you have to be the judge of how special a guest you are.
Yeah. Later in a couple of days. Thank you. It was lovely, Frankie, to listen to your story. And thank you very much for including me. I'll go straight for it. No wind at the window, no knock on the door, no light from the lampstand, no foot on the floor. No dream born of tiredness, no ghost raised by fear, just an angel and a woman, and a voice in her ear. Oh Mary, don't hide from my face. Be glad that you're favoured and filled with God's grace. The time for redeeming the world has begun, and you are requested to Mother God's Son. This child must be born that the kingdom might come, salvation for many, damnation for some. Both end and beginning, both message and sign, both victor and victim, both yours and divine. No payment was promised, no promise is made, no wedding was dated, no blueprint displayed. Yet Mary, consenting to what none could guess, replied with conviction, "Tell God I say yes."
Holy shit. Yes,
wow.
Got that an exceptionally beautiful voice, and I'm really glad that.
I have a question. Where do I buy your album?
That was fucking gorgeous. Thank you so much.
All right. I thought it was maybe on brand with your uprooted and things like that. Power of the female character.
Okay, I'm very on board with that. So thank you very much, Alan. I think next, Ainsley, are you still down to?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
This is River by Joni Mitchell. Look at Bracken's face. It's coming on Christmas. They're cutting down trees. They're putting up reindeer and singing songs of joy and peace. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. But it don't snow here. It stays pretty green. I'm gonna make a lot of money and I'm gonna quit this crazy scene. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. Oh, I wish I had a river so long I would teach my feet to fly. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. You tried hard to help me, you know, you put me at ease. You know, you loved me so naughty, you made me weak in the knees. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I'm so hard to handle, you know, I'm selfish and I'm sad. Now I've gone and lost the best baby that I ever had. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I wish I had a river so long I could teach my feet to fly. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. It's coming on Christmas. They're cutting down trees. They're putting up reindeer and singing songs of joy and peace. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on.
Yeah, ugly crying. That was really beautiful. Ainsley, I don't think I've ever heard you sing. My God, yeah. What Gordon says. What Gordon says. That was very beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I just say, Gordon's sort of consternation, angry, like rolling about is so much better than it probably would have been because you're so much bigger now.
What's so much bigger?
Gordon's hair and beard.
Oh.
And my love for you, Ainsley.
Fluffy.
Right, so next up we have Bracken, who is going to sing us something that I can't remember what the title is, but I'm certain that it's going to be fucking incredible.
Hello, another depressing one because I am who I am as a person. Okay, this song is called Boxing Day Leftovers by Chris T. And Andy, this is the same person who wrote the book of poetry that I sent you. So yeah, this is Boxing Day Leftovers. I had a Christmas kiss with mistletoe and cliff, buzzing our thing through club toilet speakers. We shared a Christmas line, singing these Christian rhymes, all chopped out on a cistern, and laughing at my weakness, she said, "You should thank the Lord for all of me that I hold back, 'cause if I loved you like you asked me, it would stop you in your tracks." Leftovers, leftovers, on Boxing Day, we all feed on leftovers, leftovers, thrown away before New Year's Eve. She said, "Everyone here is rude. Everyone here is loud." So we crawled out onto the front porch till our ears stopped ringing. And I thought maybe I'd pulled as she dragged me through the crowds. But it's not that kind of evening. The talking's just beginning. She said, "You should wind your heartbreak down and get back in the ring. We're living in a world where Simon Cowell owns everything but leftovers, leftovers, on Boxing Day. We all feed on leftovers, leftovers, thrown away before New Year's Eve. And in the towns the students protest, for a while back there they were a joke, but I guess they came back into style, now they're needed. Coldest ever Christmas morning, papers take the bait, all joking about global warming, but deep down we all know that warning should have been heeded. And early January, we'll take photos of all the dead Christmas trees piled up in the park for incineration. Look at all these people, then you look at me. I know exactly what that look means. We've got a whole winter to get through. Desperation. You should stand and sing about the world we're living in, because the truths we hold to be self-evident, they're trampled in. Leftovers, leftovers, on Boxing Day. We all feed on leftovers, leftovers, thrown away before New Year's Eve.
Holy fuck.
I love that.
One amazing, two. Jesus. That was incredible. Thank you, Bracket.
Would people be up for when this is posted tomorrow having like a thread of all of the songs that folks?
Definitely.
Ones that...
Definitely would highly recommend that. Okay, so next up, we have Andrada, who has got sufficient courage up that she is going to sing us a Romanian carol, I think. Which I'm very excited about. Oh, do we have Andrada? We do. Muted Andrada.
We do. I just figured at the last moment that I could also wear the right thing going caroling.
Woo!
So this is inspired by the traditional Romanian clothing. And in winter they would have like fur vests and hats and things to keep warm and everything.
Woo! Keep it on!
So you're probably not going to understand a thing in this carol, but the gist of it is that this person's like, hey, I'm coming over and singing you a song so you can give me like a little baked thingy, because my mom didn't make it because she couldn't find a sieve. And when she found a sieve, the bowl broke. And she scolded Dad because the bowl broke. And then when they fixed the bowl, the oven broke. And when they finally got the oven running, the new year came along. So here goes. Nervous, just a little bit. Scoală gazdă din pătuți florile d'albe și ne dă un colăcuț florile, florile d'albe. Că mămuca n-a făcut florile d'albe, sită de să n-au avut florile, florile d'albe. Pe când s-o căpătat florile d'albe, covata li s-o crepat florile, florile d'albe. L-a sfădit mama pe tata florile d'albe, de ce s-o crepat covata florile, florile d'albe. Când covata o lichit florile d'albe, cuptiorul li s-o urnit florile, florile d'albe. Când cuptiorul o pornit florile d'albe, anul nou și zânit florile, florile d'albe.
That was beautiful.
It was.
That was properly beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, you could definitely dance to that. Definitely.
Oh yeah, they're kind of, yeah.
That was really lovely. Thank you. I'm so glad you decided to sing.
Me too, and thanks for being so lovely and encouraging.
Oh God, like anytime, we are your people for anything that you want to give a go to. We're very much here for that. So next up, we have the beautiful Malcolm, who is going to do, I have no idea what, but I'm certain that it's going to be great as hell.
Well, Frankie, I remember that you had asked for this song, and then you'd said that maybe someone had offered to sing it. So was that someone else, and am I sort of supplanting them?
That was someone else, and they are going to do it later, but I would very much be up for two versions, because I think he will approach it in two different fashions, and also this is my party and it's my favorite carol, so I reckon if I want to, I can just have that.
Absolutely. I just didn't want to surprise and upset, but it sounds that is not the case. So this is O Holy Night, which is a lovely carol, but I'm doing the Nat King Cole version, and as we all know, Nat King Cole is the best Christmas carol sort of Christmas singer, and that's the album that goes on every year when I get home for Christmas on Christmas morning. So I'll have to put it on myself this year, but you know, I'm sure we'll still have a nice time. Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of the dear Saviour's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared, and the soul felt its worth. The thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angel voices, oh, night divine, oh, night when Christ was born. O night divine, O night, O night divine, fall on your knees, oh, hear the angel voices, oh, fall on your knees, and hear the glorious morn. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angel voices, oh, night divine, oh, night when Christ was born. O night divine, O night, O night divine.
I love you, Malcolm. I love you, Malcolm.
Yeah.
Damn.
Oh, God. Thank you so much. That was really beautiful. I'm fine. I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Fine. What? This is all fine. Are you Okay, so next up we have Rory, who is going to do a thing for us.
Who is going to somehow follow that? All right, this song is called "Fuck You If You Don't Like Christmas." Okay, very quick. You probably know this tune, but I really love this song particularly because of the context in which it was written. So, long story short, it was the American poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow who wrote it in 1864 while his son was serving in the Union Army in the Civil War. And he woke up one morning to hear all the church bells in town just banging out across the landscape. And his first thought was, the war is over, the South has surrendered, my son is coming home. And then he realized it was Christmas morning. So yeah, I love the song because it wrestles with some hard shit about how like Christmas is part of the calendar. You know, it's not inextricable from the rest of the world. I heard the bells on Christmas Day. They're old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat. Peace on earth, goodwill to man. And I thought how as the day had come, the belfries of all Christendom would roll along the unbroken song of peace on earth, goodwill to man. Then in despair I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and marks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to man. Then pealed the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor does he sleep. The wrong shall fail and right prevail. With peace on earth, goodwill to man. Peace on earth, goodwill to man. Thanks.
Yay. That was incredible.
That was frigging brilliant. Thank you so much, my love. Okay. Well, so next up was going to be M, which was going to be another sad Christmas thing. But M and Jenny have very kindly agreed to swap. so that we can have a momentary lift from sad Christmas times before we plunge bodily back into them. Y'all are depressing as fuck. I love you all. This worst year has brought out the worst in all of us.
Look,
It's just my normal state of being.
Yeah. I have 2 modes, cute and depressed. There's just 2.
I mean, you know, why would you need more than 2 modes when you work both of them so well? So next we have Jenny, who is going to play something for us.
I hope the sound is better now. I did all the adjustments you told me, so if this doesn't work, it's not my fault. So. Dear Mr. Claus, I really think I know you. Hope you don't mind if I should get familiar. Will ya? Santa baby, slip a staple under the tree for me. I've been an awful good girl, Santa baby, so hurry down the chimney tonight. Santa baby, a 54 convertible to light blue. Well, I'll wait up for you, dear Santa baby, so hurry down the chimney tonight. Think of all that fun I've missed. Think of all the fellas that I haven't kissed. Next year I could be just as good if you check off my Christmas list. Santa baby, I want a yacht, and really that's not a lot. I've been an angel all year, Santa baby, so hurry down the chimney tonight. Come and trim my Christmas tree with some decorations bought at Tiffany's. I really do believe in you. Now let's see if you believe in me too. Santa baby, forgot to mention one little thing, a ring. And I don't mean on the phone, Santa baby, so hurry down the chimney tonight. Hurry down the chimney tonight. Hurry down the chimney tonight. I noticed halfway through that my ukulele had untuned itself, but
oh no,
I'd go on.
It sounded good as hell to me, man. Like,
good enough for bluesy, right? It was just blues chords. It wasn't off key at all.
I was thinking, how do you make that sound so effortless?
So good, so freaking good. Thank you very much, Jenny. Okay, so next up we have M.
This song really made me think of Christmas this year. Holy crap. So sorry, I'm gonna make you all kind of sad. But you got the cute stuff earlier, so when you're sad after, just think of that, I guess. This is a song for Winter's Night written by Gordon Lightfoot, but there's been a million arrangements of it. The lamp is burning low upon my tabletop. The snow is softly falling. The air is still within the silence of my room. I hear your voice softly calling. If I could happy just to hold the hands I love on this winter's night with you. The smoke is rising in the shadows overhead. My glass is almost empty. I read again between the lines upon each page the words of love you sent me. If I could know within my heart that you are lonely too, I would be happy just to hold the hands I love on this winter's night with you. The fire is dying now, my lamp is getting dim. The shades of night are lifting. The morning light steals across my window pane, where webs of snow are drifting. If I could only have you near to breathe a sigh or two, I would be happy just to hold the hands I love on this winter's night with you, and to be once again with you.
Jesus.
Winter songs by Canadians, damn.
Yeah.
So depressing.
Okay, that was very beautiful. Thank you so much, Em.
I love that song so much. Thanks, Em.
Well,
thanks for playing River. I thought about playing that.
We just traded.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops.
I miss you guys. Next time I see you, let's all hold hands.
Yes, so much. Oh my god. Okay, we're so nearly through this, y'all. We can do this. We can get through this together. I mean, when I say we can get through this together, we're all about to be destroyed. So Ainsley is going to go next, and she's going to destroy me, and then Bracken is going to go next, and they are going to destroy all of us.
Uh-oh.
So, like, let's do this. Oh my god. Right, Ainsley.
So I'm the other Oh Holy Night. And they will be different, because I decided not to do Nat King Cole, because I wanted all 3 verses, and he skips the second 2. Oh. Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. This is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angels' voices. Oh, divine, O night when Christ was born. O night divine, O night divine, led by the light of faith serenely beaming, with glowing hearts by his cradle we stand. So led by light of a star sweetly gleaming, here come the wise men from Orient land. The King of Kings lay thus in lowly manger, in all our trials, born to be our friend. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angels' voices, oh, night divine, oh, night when Christ was born. Oh, night divine, oh, night divine. Truly he taught us to love one another. His law is love, and his gospel is peace. Chains shall he break, for the slave he is our brother, and in his name all oppression shall cease. Sweet hymns of joy in grateful chorus raise we, let all within us praise his holy name. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angels' voices, oh, night divine, oh, night when Christ was born. Oh, night divine, oh, night divine.
Thank you so much, Ainsley.
You're welcome. I'm happy you got it twice and that they were so different.
Like singing along and like making lots of gross noises and muted. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So everybody, we are nearly officially at the end of the Storytime Festive Solstice edition. I just want to say thank you again to everyone for coming and participating and just making this such an incredible space and community. This has been a hella long, hella difficult, hella dark year for everybody, but like we've been here for each other, and I think that's kind of amazing. And so thank you for helping me build this community, and let's keep it going, you know. Let's not shut up shop just yet. I think we're going to need it still for a little bit longer. So before I stop the recording, we've got a final note from Bracken, which is horribly pertinent for this year.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes, because I've been weeping for most of the evening, and I only started learning this song a couple of days ago, so there might be long pauses where I try and figure out the chords. I'm learning it now. Soulful pauses. Oh, capo. Yourself a merry little Christmas. Let your heart be light. Next year all our troubles will be out of sight. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Make the Yuletide gay. Next year all our troubles will be miles away. Here we are as in olden days, happy golden days of yore. Faithful friends who are dear to us, gather near to us once more. Someday soon we all will be together, if the fates allow. Until then, we have to muddle through somehow. So have yourself a merry little Christmas now. Here we are as in olden days, happy golden days of yore. Faithful friends who are dear to us will be near to us once more. Years, we all will be together, if the fates allow. So hang a shining star upon the highest bough, and have yourself a merry little Christmas now. Merry Christmas. Oh, it makes Frankie cry again! Fuck yeah!
Woo, that's your cheers!
Oh, you got
it, Bracken!
Together again!
Oh, good.
It's gonna be
wonderful.
Oh, hun, you know what? Here's a good thing. Recently, Melissa put out some information saying that is it Delta Blues will be back, and they've rescheduled to September, and that's a realistic expectation, which means that Highland Fusion Retreat in September is also a realistic expectation. So we're coming back. A little longer.
Oh, no. Now you're gonna make us all cry all over again.
Thank you so much.
No obligation, Katie Bracken, but I would really want to just stay there for a whole week. Just saying.
Well, on a related note, actually, the Saturday night theme, I know traditionally we've always established it on the day, but it makes sense to us to, like, for Home Infusion 2021, the Saturday night theme is literally just everyone's birthday party as a catch-up.
You sweet fuckers.
That's so sweet. Okay, listen. Before this all descends into emotional anarchy more than it has, I'm going to officially draw this to a conclusion, which means we need to say goodbye to the catch-up crew.
Wait. I have a proposition, and I don't know if you guys are up for it, but I think the catch-up crew would like this probably. So there is one Christmas song that we could do via Zoom, I think, if 11 other people are up for it. We could do the 12 Nights of Christmas subsequently.
That is incredibly ambitious.
Yeah.
I know the timing isn't going to be perfect, but it's going to be one after the other. So everyone pick a number, and then we're going to do this.
Okay, right.
Are 11 people up for this?
Yeah, everyone put a thumb up if you are.
For the 365 days of 2020.
Jenny, this is your project. I wash my hands of it.
Yeah, this is my project. Who's up for it? I count 1 thumb, 2 thumbs, 3 thumbs. Okay, we're never gonna get to 12 at this rate. 4 thumbs. my own thumb is 5 thumbs. 6 thumbs. 7.
One from Rory.
4, 5, 6,
Start.
7, 8. I see 8, 9.
Yeah, start at whatever number we get to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm gonna put number 1 in the chat. I'm gonna be number 1. And everyone put their number down now in the chat.
This is so fun.
Oh no! Do it in order, folks! No, as long as
no one
we've
wanted
got all
to,
the
so I'm taking
numbers and everybody knows their number, that's fine. Okay.
Oh, damn it. Katie got in just before me.
Oh.
Okay, so Nick and Katie are 4 and
5
5.
gold rings is the big one.
So wait, hold on. Are we each singing like a whole verse?
Well, no, each one is singing the beginning of their verse on the day of Christmas my true life gave to me and their thing. And then everybody sings
And then as we go through them?
as we go through them.
Nice.
You know what I
Bracken,
mean?
Bracken, I don't think yours is the day of Christmas.
Okay, what number is that?
We have 2 number 2s. Ian or Malcolm, one of you's got to switch.
I'll shift quite happily. What are we missing?
Ian, you said it first, I think.
I don't mind.
It was just because I thought it was missing, so I'll take whatever. So that makes.
So we have
I don't think
1,
there's a
2,
6.
3, 4, 5.
I can do 6.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 are missing.
I love that the
I'll do
catch-up
10.
is the whole behind the scenes
Oh,
documentary.
hold on. Sending this to Malcolm. I'll do 10.
Alan is 7.
Frankie.
What's that, my love?
No, you sent it to me. I was confused.
Yeah.
1, 2,
We just need 9, 11, 12. Who's 9?
7, 8, 9, 11, and 12 are missing. Does somebody want to do 2?
Frankie privately now.
Aha! Now who's messaging who privately?
Uh-oh.
Okay, so Malcolm is 2 instead of Malcolm is 9 instead of 2. Okay, so
we just need 11 and 12.
11 and 12.
We might not get that far.
Come
Jenny,
on.
you and I could just go back and up and do 11 and 12 if nobody else wants to volunteer. Or if
Wait,
whoever's
11
two,
and
like
12.
Jenny, you and Ian, if Ian wants to, like
Sorry.
anybody else who's gone before can.
It is 11. 11 jars of biscuit.
11 jars of biscuit.
Okay, hear
We
what
just make up our own things.
Diabetes.
We've got a while before we get there. People can drop in the chat. If they
12 finished books.
Okay, Martin is 11. Number 12. Calling number 12.
Everybody.
Okay. We've got all of them. So everybody,
My 6
pull
and 12,
up
I'm
your
like
lyrics
doubles.
if you're not sure about them. Pull them up on the internet now.
Wait, are we doing all?
Yes.
In case you're wondering, don't look at the Wikipedia article. It's got a spreadsheet in it.
We're doing, like, everybody sings the first, on the day of Christmas my true love gave to me, and their thing. And then when I think and they're gonna sing it. Okay, so everybody's gonna sing, like, you know how I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everybody just keep singing that thing. And okay. Here we Good. Here we go. Everybody got the lyrics?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. I'm gonna start. I hope I pick a good key for everyone.
I'm so glad we have this recorded.
Yep.
But everyone, feel free to replace with something relevant to story time.
Yeah.
It's just going to be
No, like that's too much pressure. Too much pressure. Let's go classic. Let's go classic with it.
Original lyrics.
Original lyrics.
Original lyrics. There's a spreadsheet for the lyrics. There's no original.
Okay. So
you get to do the milking.
Will I start? Or...
Okay.
Start.
Go.
Okay.
Can we make sure our singers are unmuted?
Yeah.
Alright?
Singers, make sure you're unmuted.
Yeah, singers, please unmute
Everyone be
yourself,
unmuted.
Otherwise, it'll be weird. So. Whew. Now I'm a bit excited. It's like on the like a couple of minutes ago.
Worst idea ever.
On the first day of Christmas, my true love sent to me a portrait in a pear tree.
On the second day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 2 turtle doves.
And a portrait in a pear tree.
On the third day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 3 French hens.
2 turtle doves.
And a portrait in a pear tree.
On the fourth day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 4 calling birds.
3 French hens.
2 turtle doves.
And a portrait in a pear tree.
On the 5th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 5 gold rings.
4 calling birds.
3 French hens.
2 turtle doves.
And a portrait in a pear tree.
On the 6th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 6 geese a-laying.
5 gold rings.
4 calling birds.
3 French hens.
2 turtle doves.
And a portrait in a pear tree.
On the 7th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 7 swans a-swimming.
6 geese a-laying.
5 gold rings.
4 calling birds.
3 French hens.
2 turtle doves.
And a portrait in a pear tree.
On the 8th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 8 hens are milking.
7 swans a-swimming.
6 geese a-laying.
5 gold rings.
4 calling birds.
3 French hens.
2 turtle doves.
And a portrait in a pear tree.
Oh. My true love sent to me 9 ladies dancing. It's American.
7 swans a-swimming.
6 geese a-laying.
5 gold rings.
4 calling birds.
3 French hens.
2 turtle doves.
Portrait in a pear tree.
On the 10th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 10 lords a-leaping.
9 ladies dancing. 8 maids are milking.
7 swans are swimming.
6 geese are laying.
5 gold rings.
4 calling birds.
3 French hens.
Oh, am I?
Oh.
11 papers piping.
10 lords are leaping.
9 ladies dancing.
Maids are milking.
7 swans are swimming.
6 geese are laying.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gold rings.
4 calling birds.
3 French hens.
2 turtle doves.
A partridge in the pear tree.
On the 12th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 12 drummers drumming.
11 papers piping.
10 lords are leaping.
9 ladies dancing. Maids are milking.
7 swans are swimming.
6 geese are laying.
5
gold rings.
Precious. 4 calling birds.
3 French hens.
2 turtle doves.
Partridge in a pear
Jenny, you fucking genius.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think I took that seriously enough.
You
That was
took
amazing.
it the right amount of seriously, I think.
It was so perfect. Oh my god.
Perfect. Oh my god, I love you all so much.
Can we make this a Christmas tradition?
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, but can you like carve this bit out like Ian's thing?
Yeah, I definitely. Oh yeah, I for sure am. I'm gonna put that in the next newsletter. Right.
Jenny.
Right. On that wonderful, wonderful note, let's say goodbye to the catch-up crew. Catch-up crew, we love you.
Night, friends.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, catch-up crew. Happy solstice.
Merry Christmas, happy solstice.
Happy solstice.